All right, good evening to the the Select Board meeting for November 10th, 2025. This open meeting of the Town of Auburn Select Board is being conducted both in person and remotely, consistent with Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, which suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed to participate remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For the public to join the meeting remotely by telephone, 1-408-650-3123 and access code 235-235-861. Or the public can join via computer at global.gotomeeting.com, join 235-235-861. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Please note that this meeting is being recorded by Auburn Cable Television. Is anyone else recording the meeting? Okay, so now please stand if you're able to for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, the first thing on our agenda is public comments. And who do we have signed up? Yep. All right. All right, Mr. Rafferty, come on up, please. Thank you. Be sure to state your name for the record.
Good evening, Alan Rafferty, Paul Street, Auburn, Massachusetts. In my recent discussion with several town meeting members, I was told that they were not sure a proper vote on warrant Article 8 was taken recently, which was a zoning bylaw change to meet MBTA compliance in relation to Chapter 40B. Here is a recount of what happened at the last town meeting. A motion to consider Article 8 was made and seconded. Discussion ensued. Someone made a motion to move the question and cut off debate, which requires a 2/3 vote. Moderator Doreen Goodrich said the vote on Article 8 will proceed immediately, which was incorrect parliamentary procedure according to town meeting time. Someone asked if there would be a vote on the motion to move the question. She is clearly heard saying no vote was required for that motion, which was incorrect. As people were voting, the big projected board overhead clearly shows that the vote was on moving the question, and the vote was recorded. The results of that vote showed that a 2/3 margin needed to pass that motion occurred by a slim margin. Moderator Goodrich declared that the article passed, despite the presence of the ex-moderator, Mr. Baker, and Town Council Hennigan. No one bothered to correct her. A vote on Article 9 then took place. After that, the moderator was approached, I believe, by the town planner, and he told her of her error. She declared that a vote on Article 8 would now have to take place. Another vote took place, and the big board that tallied the votes showed that the article passed with a slim 2/3 majority. But given the narrative that I have provided, my concerns are that there was sufficient confusion on what vote was taking place to end debate. That should invalidate that vote. The debate was cut off in violation of parliamentary procedure. A new vote moving the question should have taken place, but never did. Town meeting members told me that they had more to say that could have swayed the vote, but were not allowed. A proper vote on the motion to move the question is required before you can proceed to the main motion of voting on Article 8. Thus, the later proper vote on Article 8 was out of order. Once again, the ex-moderator Charles Baker, the moderator Doreen Goodrich, and Town Council Hennigan were silent on this issue, and herein shall be known in the future as the no legal, hear no eagle, see no legal, and speak no legal trio of monkeys. At best, this was a flagrant ignorance of parliamentary procedure, and at worst, a deliberate act to deny town meeting members the right to debate, and they wanted to ram Article 8 through to passage. My request, in agreement with several town meeting members I've spoken to, is that Article 8 be brought back to a subsequent town meeting and voted on properly. Until then, the article should not be submitted to the Commonwealth as being passed by town meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rafferty. And thank you for sending your email. We received that last week, and our town manager sought out legal opinion, which we have received, and we want to email that to you this week also. I believe we do have your email address, okay? And I think the legal opinion stated that the vote was valid, but you'll see that in the email that is being sent out to you.
Since you commented on that? Mm-hmm. And what was the name of the council that gave that opinion?
Our town council, Bob Hennigan.
Oh, Mr. Hennigan, the one who didn't bother to declare that the parliamentary procedure had been violated. Thank you.
All right, anyone else? We don't have anyone else for comments. So now let's go to our first, we're going to have presentations, public hearings. We have a public hearing on the tax classification, and the board votes will be taken. So do I hear a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. All right, our public hearing, here's Seth, our town assessor.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just get set up here. Okay, so this is the fiscal '26 classification hearing. Just bear with me for a second. All right. Okay. There we go. Introduction. So the purpose, okay, I'm on the introduction. The calculations for the tax rate and other numbers are estimated as of the time of the preparation. There may be additional informational slides, including in handouts that are not part of tonight's presentation. The purpose of the classification is to allow a shift in the tax burden between property classes. This does not change the total tax levy for the community. It simply determines the share to be borne by each class. What the classification hearing does not do, it does not determine the tax rate for the town. It only determines the distribution. Classification does not determine how much money can be raised. That is, the town meeting voters determine what the levy will be. Your tax rate. The tax levy is determined by town meeting and appropriations and expenditures, state and county charges. It's paid for using town revenues, excise fees on enterprise and other available funds, total taxable real estate and personal property, state aid reimbursements, new growth, debt exclusions, and overrides. The role of the assessor is to value property for purpose of equitable taxation, administer abatements and exemptions, be a resource to taxpayers, and explain the classification options to selectmen. Overview of the revaluation process. Residential properties are adjusted annually on an interim to full and fair market value. Attributes affecting values include style, condition, interior, exterior features, and market conditions. Commercial and industrial properties are based on an income approach to value per the Department of Revenue requirements. Personal property is determined by blended value and original cost less depreciation, and or fair cash value approaches are generally used. There's going to be 4 votes at the classification hearing. The residential factor shifts the tax rate between residential and commercial industrial properties. Open space discount, we do not have any open space in Auburn. The residential exemption shifts the burden within the residential class, and the small commercial exemption shifts the burden within the commercial and industrial class to give a discount to qualifying properties. Percentage of the levy for property classes. This is a historical view, 10, 15-year snapshot, fiscal 2010 versus fiscal 2026. You can see that the residential component of the tax base is 76.3% in fiscal 26. In 2010, it was 73.4%, so it's fairly similar. It's held steady. The tax levy limit is the maximum amount the town can levy in a given year. So it's last year's levy plus new growth plus 2.5%. The maximum allowable levy is the levy limit plus debt exclusions and overrides. Excess levy capacity is the levy limit minus the actual levy. And here are the numbers for the fiscal 26 levy limit calculations. You had fiscal year 2025 levy limit of $56.75 million. The allowable 2.5% levy increase for fiscal 26 was $1.421 million. The fiscal 26 new growth was $733,380. There was no override, so the levy limit was $59,031,050, and the fiscal 26 debt exclusion was 1.428, almost 1.429 million. So the fiscal 26 maximum allowable levy is $60,459,976. Fiscal 26, what factors drive the tax rate? Auburn Middle School, debt exclusions, demolitions, properties going off the tax rolls due to demolition from snow damage, fire damage, or other causes, properties becoming exempt, coming off the tax roll. The fire station might be an example of that. Purchases by exempt organizations, acquisitions by the town. The fiscal 26 growth trends. Residential growth is trending upward. It's the most stable of the growth, and it's not subject to being skewed by individual properties. 26 Albert Street, many of us know, is topography. The 324 apartments, that's residential, and that falls in the residential class, so that's trending up. Commercial growth is steady. Numbers can be affected annually by one significant new addition or project. Industrial is kind of similar to commercial, can be affected annually by one significant new property or addition. And personal property growth is somewhat flat as business expansion is kind of leveled off. This is the new growth 5-year trend. Fiscal 26, you can see the highest percentage was in residential at 384,000. Commercial was 45,000, industrial 20, and personal property was 283,436. Notable growth changes. Again, we talked about 26 Albert Street. Majority of buildings are now online, accounting for the majority of residential growth. Personal property remains kind of flat. Commercial industrial growth is stable this year. We anticipate sometime this year or next year some of the storage units coming online. Residential value percentage change due to revaluation. So in fiscal 26, this is where you see how much each individual residential class kind of increased. Single family went up 5.4%, condos 7.1%, 2 and 3 family went up around the same. Land was pretty flat, and the apartments 4 and above, again, this is topography, went up 27.40%, but that's basically because a number of units kept coming on. So in fiscal 26, the overall residential class change was 5.8% increased from the year before. We're going to vote on the residential discount. It's up to 20% discount to owner occupants. Shifts the burden from owner-occupant homes to non-owner occupants. Works best in communities with a large amount of vacation homes, Airbnb, Verbo-type properties. Example is Cape Cod. I'm going to vote on the small commercial exemption. The final vote for the Board of Selectmen is the commercial. No effect, this has no effect on the residential and personal property. Industrial properties do not qualify for the small business exemption, small commercial business, but share the tax burden for the exemption. The exemption goes to the property owner, not the business, and it relies on the pass-through effect. For multi-businesses and this is for multi-businesses and single-tenant properties, all businesses must qualify. So if it's a strip mall, all the businesses in there must have less than 10 employees, and the total parcel must be assessed at less than $1 million. If adopted, it shifts the tax rate up to 10% by annual vote between properties occupied and qualified small business onto the commercial, to the larger commercial and industrial properties. Applications that are taken after the classification hearing and process can delay setting the tax rate. Any exemptions not processed prior to the submission of the recap will have an impact on the overlay account. This is just an example of applying the small business exemption. If the commercial industrial tax rate was $16 per thousand, on the left side of the column, you can see the values, $250,000. It would save that parcel owner $400 in actual real estate taxes. If the commercial value was $500,000 and they qualified, it would save them $800. If it was $750,000 assessed value, it would save them $1,200, and the maximum, $999, under $1 million, would save them around $1,600. This is a historic trend of the fiscal years and what the commercial, industrial, and personal property split has been. We are currently at 1.09. And you can see it's trended down and then gone flat, and then trended down and gone flat. So that's just a historical look at it. These are commercial, industrial, personal property growth trends as the factor has changed. So if you go to the bottom line in fiscal '26, the total new growth applied to the levy limit was 733,380. The residential was 384,530, which was 52%. And the commercial, industrial, and personal property was 348,850, which is 47.5%. So it kind of gives you a historical look at how the trends and the growth was over the previous years as well. This is a slide that kind of shows what it would cost if you're a commercial business owner as compared to some of the surrounding towns. Worcester obviously being the highest at $28.61 per thousand. This is based on like $1 million valued house, $1 million valued commercial parcel. So they would be paying, $28,000 in taxes. Auburn is at $16.10, so they'd be paying a little over $16,000. And the most similar one kind of in the area is Sturbridge at $15.60. And this is our rate chart for fiscal '26. In the middle is the 1.09 factor that we are currently at. If we stayed at that, the residential tax rate should be around $14.19 per thousand. The commercial and industrial rate would be $15.97 per thousand, and the personal property would be $15.91 per thousand. As you can see, if you shift up or closer to a factor of 1, if there was one tax rate, it would be $14.60 for residential, commercial, and industrial. And this chart does assume that the small business commercial exemption will be passed at 10%. So the impact of splitting the tax rate on the average property in fiscal '26 is as follows. On the left-hand side, you can see the class, the residential, the commercial, the industrial. The column after that says the average fiscal 2026 value. So for a residential single-family home, it's $442,873. Commercial is 1.337, industrial is 2.319, personal property is 180,000. Those are the average accounts. So again, if you go to the middle column at 1.09, the average residential single-family tax bill for fiscal '26 will be $6,284. And then there is some other calculations that if you shift 2 factors each way, they will correspondingly go up or go down. The impact of shift change based on the 2026 factor of 1.09. So the residential, if you were to shift it down closer to the single tax rate at 1.07, the residential would be paying $43 more than what was on the previous slide. But the commercial would pay $388 less, and the industrial would pay $673 less. Conversely, if you shifted the factor the other way, 1.11, the residential folks would save $39 on average, whereas the commercial folks would pay an average of $402 more, and the industrial folks would pay almost $700 more. This is a fiscal '25 local town and actual tax single-family residential. It has some surrounding and similar type municipalities, what the average single-family value is in those communities, what their tax rates are for fiscal '25, and what they calculate out for the actual tax bill. So you can kind of see Auburn is in the middle of the pack for that group of municipalities. The average state real estate tax bill is $7,730, and the fiscal '26 residential tax bill in Auburn should be approximately $6,284. Auburn home value trends. So you can see this is kind of the single-family home average. It's been on a steady incline, just like the rest of the housing market for the last 5-6 years. And we are at $442,873 for fiscal '26. This is the calculation sheet broken down a little bit more. It's similar to the ones I showed you back on slide 25 and 26, showing the corresponding tax rates should you decide to do a larger shift. Those would be the projected out tax rates. And the assessor's office does offer a lot of personal exemptions. 41C, 65 and older, 45 of those, 17D, surviving spouse, or seniors over 70 with limited assets, 37A, blind exemption, 42 is a surviving spouse of a firefighter or police officer killed in the line of duty. And we do a lot of veterans exemptions, and we've had a lot of articles recently about that, but we work hand in hand with the veterans agent and try to give out as much as possible there as well. Along with these, there is also some sewer and trash discounts to the 41Cs that we work in conjunction with the other departments. And that is the end of the show, or the slideshow.
Why don't we hear from the chamber next? Before we ask questions? You want to ask some questions right now of our assessor? Anyone?
I think we should hear from people that would ask questions.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree.
All right. Does anyone else want to make a presentation tonight? Is there someone from the Chamber of Commerce here? Yes. Okay, come on up, please. Just be sure to identify yourself. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nigel Belgrave, and I am a Auburn resident for the past 25 years. Yeah, 25 years, a little over. My son was born and raised in Auburn, went to Auburn Middle School, which we paid for, Auburn High School, which I paid for, all new schools. I've been a business owner in Auburn for the past 10 years. I own a company up on Sword Street. We have 8 employees. And for the past 2 years, I've been a board member for the Auburn Chamber, which is part of the reason why I'm here today, as a representative of the Auburn Chamber. And thank you for the time to allow me to speak. A lot of people know about the Chamber, but not everybody knows about our contribution. Obviously, primarily, we're here to represent the businesses in town, but more and more, we're finding that what we're doing is helping the businesses be part of the community and not just a separate, isolated thing. So that's part of why I'm here today, is I just wanted to make sure that everybody's aware that the businesses in town are truly part of the community. We're not a separate entity. We're here to work with the town, work with the community. Many of us are not only employees of companies in town, but you also live in town as well, you know? So it's in our best interest. The Chamber's board is made up of volunteer members only, so again, we're dedicating our personal time, our energy, not just to help our businesses and other businesses, but also help the community in which we live. A couple of things I wanted to highlight, for example, is we have a partnership with every one of the schools in the Auburn school system, which means a board member volunteers their time to work with the school, always looking to see what ways we can help the schools. So, for example, last year we did over $5,000 in grants to help teachers be more creative in their school and learning and teaching environments, helping their students see the world from a slightly different perspective. Each and every year we raise money for the seniors, not just in Auburn, but at Bay Path as well. We hold an annual golf tournament. It takes a lot of time, a lot of energy. I volunteered at it, and I don't play golf. So it's just a real commitment. But we do it each and every year. We do it for the seniors of the Auburn, of both schools, Bay Path and Auburn High School. Last year, we raised over $18,000. And since the time we started it, about 30 years ago, this was our anniversary, we raised over $420,000. So we made a big contribution to the Auburn seniors. Also, within our population, obviously, is businesses. A lot of businesses belong and want to be part of the Chamber. We see businesses joining the Chamber all the time because they want to be part of that community. They do not just want to be standalone. They want to be part of what we do. A year ago, we went out and we surveyed our business customers to find out what was their contribution to the town. Obviously, a lot of them do volunteer work and help with the fundraising for the Chamber itself, but we wanted to know what else are they doing separately. Our survey found that they donated over $50,000 in that past year, and again, we're assuming it's going to be similar this year, right to the Auburn, right to the town in which we live and operate and function in. Last year, we had over 15 companies join the Chamber. Again, they could operate, they could function just fine by themselves, but they see the Chamber as a vehicle for them to be participants in the community. They've hosted events with us, they've done donations, they've spent their time and energy supporting the Worcester community. I mean, the Auburn community, sorry. Let me do that. I'm going to sidetrack just a little bit. I'm a small business owner. I love being a small business owner. I love being close to my folks. I love working in this community. I love being part of this community. I'd love to see Auburn do more to encourage more of the small business owners. It seems these days that we get a lot of the chains coming in, and nothing against chains, as I hold a Dunkin' Donuts mug, right? But I'd love to see more of the local, small mom-and-pop type businesses take place in Auburn, and I know it's not quite your arena, but I just wanted to bring that up. These are the folks who join the chamber. These are the folks who participate, donate to the PTOs, donate to the Little League, volunteer at the events. So if we can do more to encourage small business, I'd love to see that. The other thing I wanted to add real quick about encouraging more small local businesses is one of the things I observe almost every day from my own staff. Obviously, they work in the town of Auburn. I pay them in the town of Auburn. They pick up their checks. Their money's here. Frequently, though, they pick up and leave. One of my employees lives in town, the rest do not. They don't spend their money frequently in the town of Auburn, and that's more because we don't provide them the opportunity to. I'd love to see more of that where they have more of a reason to spend money in town. Yes, they do buy lunches, and again, it's a coin flip between a national chain and a local guy. I'd love to see them have more choices so they can spend their money with local companies. Again, sidetracking just a little bit. So why am I up here? Why am I doing all this talking? Ultimately, what we're looking for from the chamber is to propose a decrease in the split going from 1.09 to 1.07. We realize its impact, and I want to speak to that just real quick as well. My mother passed away a couple of years ago. My father is home retired now on a fixed income. So I understand the nature of a tax burden on him. I do his grocery shopping, I pay his bills. He's pretty good at managing his financials, but I do some oversight. So I have a very good understanding of what every penny means to him. And I realize what the impact would be if taxes aren't correct in his world. So I just wanted to make that statement so it's not a case of this is a business owner who doesn't know what he's really asking for. I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of that, you know. So I do understand that. I also understand that, in my opinion, at least my humble opinion, is that making that move to a single tax rate ultimately will benefit him, even though there will be some initial pain, you know. So that's part of the reason why I'm supporting it. Yes, I'm a little torn being a resident. I know the impact on me directly. I know the impact on my father, and I know the impact on my business. So I'm pulled in all directions, but ultimately I know what the end goal is. So that's why I'm up here today, and that's why I wanted to make that plea. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time. I much appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to speak? Come on up.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Carrie Cunningham. I am an Auburn resident. I have two boys that are, one just graduated from Bay Path, and one is now a senior at Bay Path. I live in Auburn. I also work in Auburn. My family has had a business here for 4 generations, so I am a business-minded person. And I just wanted to add a comment to Nigel's presentation. In listening to businesses and being on the board of directors for the Chamber of Commerce, we hear a lot of the business pains. And we have our golf tournament, as he stated, for the past 30 years. The past 2 years, we've had it at Pleasant Valley Country Club. Now, I'm not a golfer. I don't know if anybody here is, but golfing at Pleasant Valley, I guess, is a kind of a nice thing. It's a beautiful course, but it's expensive. And as many people that enjoy it and love it, we just made a decision to change courses because a lot of the businesses in town couldn't support us this year because of the cost of joining that tournament. So we decided to go to a course that was a lot less money in hopes to attract the more businesses, because they do want to contribute, but they're just spread thin. So if we can lessen that financial pain on them, get them out on the golf course, still have them donate and spend the money so that we can fund all the grants and the scholarships that we pay out each year. I'm not going to divulge the financials, but it's pretty darn close, if not the past few years have been a little bit of a deficit that we've had to cover those costs, because we're not going to deny those scholarships or the grants. So with that being said, so I am a business-minded person, and one thing I want to say that Auburn has consistently demonstrated a strong commitment to the business growth and the economic development in this town by either keeping the tax rate equal or going down. What I'm really excited about is the recent investment that this town has made in the assistant town manager and also the director of business and economic development. I think this is just a wonderful continuation of the vision that Auburn has. For many years, Auburn residents have voiced the importance of attracting new businesses and creating a more vibrant and sustainable future. The creation of this new director's position is just the thoughtful, forward-thinking response to all those long-held goals. It reflects the understanding that real economic progress comes from leadership, vision, and collaboration across the entire community. As Auburn continues to grow and evolve, it's essential that we support this initiative and the new director and the broader economic strategies that come with it, lowering taxes for all. Ongoing cooperation among the Select Board, the town administration, residents, and business community will help ensure that Auburn remains competitive, prosperous, and welcoming to new opportunities. I really commend the town of Auburn for taking these deliberate steps towards a stronger economic future. The continued progress towards achieving a single tax rate will further strengthen that foundation, promoting fairness, encouraging investment, and benefiting everybody who calls Auburn home. I just want to take a couple moments right now just to go over a scenario of what would happen if we did increase the tax costs for towns. So we have Town A and we have Town B. Town A, the property taxes have increased. When that happens, if it's a landlord, the landlord usually passes those tax burdens on to the tenant. The tenant, being a business, has to increase their prices in order to maintain that same profitability and stay in business. Town B has no property increases at all, and prices remain the same. The business in Town A is forced to raise their prices, which in turn can cause sales to drop. They can't afford to hire any new staff. Community donations and their involvement can decline. But more importantly, the residents in Town A are either forced to pay those prices that business has if they're unable to go to a neighboring town to get for cheaper prices. So Town B, of course, is in a much better financial situation. It now has increased commercial activity, it has higher sales tax dollars, more jobs, more profit, and more donations go back into their own community, not to ours, where our residents would be ultimately supporting them. So of the 4 towns that border Auburn, well, let me back up. There's 3 towns in one city, and we can't compare ourselves to the city. But there are 3 towns that border Auburn, and they all have single tax rates. It's Millbury, it's Leicester, it's Oxford. And I really would like to see all this money staying in Auburn and not having our residents go shopping elsewhere. I think that's all that I need to say. We just need to come to a single tax rate. Last year we did stay the same, so I do support and suggest a decrease to 1.07. And I thank you very much for your time and service.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to speak? No, okay. All right, board members, any questions?
The residents don't want
Any residents would like to speak? Sure, come on down. Come up to the podium, yep. You just identify yourself, of course. Thank you.
Excuse me, Wayne Page, live at 90 Old Common Road in Auburn. I used to go to these meetings all the time when tax classification, and I didn't make it the last couple of years for different reasons. But I'm here tonight just to advocate for the residents in town. You talk about businesses turning around and worrying about money so much, but what about our people in our town? What about our seniors? What about our people that live at home that can barely pay their taxes or can't pay their taxes? I mean, to keep doing this with the businesses and helping them out, you got to help the residents The businesses are here, they make a profit, and really, that's, all I really got to say about it, but I just think it's wrong. I think they should be paying more of the taxes than the residents. Thank you.
Okay, would anyone else like to speak? Sure, come on up. And just state your name, of course. Yeah.
Through the chair, I'd like to just offer a little criticism of two of the speakers from the Chamber of Commerce. Just my recommendation in the future, if you're going to speak with a cup of coffee hanging over the town's laptop, I think you should probably not do that in the future. If you destroy their laptop, our taxes are going to go up. Second, one of the speakers mentioned she would like to keep some of the money in the town. And yet, what they do is they hold a golf, whatever they call it, a golf contest, and they hold it outside of the town. I'd like to remind them that the town of Auburn has a golf course. One of the best ways of keeping some money in the town is maybe use our golf course. Just thinking. Now, in general terms, some of the most progressive areas in the state of Massachusetts, Boston and the town of Cambridge, without a doubt, progressive. Mayor Wu recently squashed all her competition and is considered one of the most progressive politicians we have. She recently tried to increase taxes on the businesses. Why? To help the residents. The town of Cambridge, I understand, wants to do the same thing. They want to increase taxes on the businesses to help the residents, and certainly the money can be used in various and sundry ways. So it just I would imagine that if Auburn considered itself progressive in any sense of the word, you might consider doing the same thing. But I'm not going to hold too much hope for that. Finally, we all know that Chapter 40B has been an issue in the town, and MBTA bylaw changes. All of this is going to mean more residents are coming into the town. The town is going to develop. I understand that we have safe harbor for, 19 months or so, but they're coming back eventually. And I think it's about time you start considering slowing down the development in the town of Auburn. One of the ways you could do that is start raising the taxes on the businesses, okay? One of the previous speakers said that they just got 15 new members. I've always been against encouraging businesses coming into Auburn because I've always argued that all roads lead to Auburn. The foot traffic is fantastic. You never had to encourage businesses to come here, and our tax rate was lower than Worcester. And Mayor Murray, who was the mayor of Worcester, I believe his name was, he deliberately sent some of his people out here to argue to support the Chamber of Commerce in Auburn. He sent it from their Chamber of Commerce to argue that Auburn should lower the taxes on businesses in Auburn because it would promote businesses coming into Auburn. Yet at the same time, he was saying the same thing in the city of Worcester. He was saying, oh, we've got to lower taxes in Worcester so we don't lose any businesses to Auburn. You can't have it both ways unless you lie into your teeth, Mr. Murray. And Mr. Murray is far from being a progressive after he recently resigned from the Research Bureau Board of Directors because they had the audacity to suggest that there be a police civilian review board, which Worcester is in dire need of, quite frankly. The federal government has come out and said there there are big issues in the city of Worcester. So he's far from a progressive. Why we would ever listen to anything he said is beyond me. So anyways, I would recommend that you certainly not decrease the taxes on businesses any further. And I personally don't think you will, but I think you should probably start reversing the trend. But like I said, I'm not hoping for much.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to speak? Sure, come on up.
Good evening. My name is Eric Riches, Ravine Drive, Auburn, Mass. I'm happy that the chamber is here tonight because I had some words for them in my presentation, but I'll cut a little here. So businesses need to understand tax rates go up. Same as your property tax. They go up at least 2.5%, and everybody wants to make it more. Adapt, improvise, or overcome. I own a business. I'm your peer, more than a decade, in this town and elsewhere, and the chamber's done exactly zero for any of the entrepreneurs I know locally or around. They're happy to hustle money for fundraisers, for golf tournaments, which are great community benefits. Support that. Where they lack, actually, is they have a special status in a 501c6 corporation, and they have special powers. They have special access to grants. They have special access to small business funding. They have special access to mentorship programs, to marketing, to all sorts of money to bring more businesses here to lower your individual burden across more members. Yet we don't see that from the chamber at all. My experience, I haven't seen it. I haven't met any other entrepreneurs who have. So, I'm about to make a proposal in a little bit here for an EDIC and some other things where you all will be an integral part. It will lessen your burden. But if you're worried about your revenues, if you're worried about your business, if you're worried about your burdens, you need to innovate, adapt, change your supply chains, become more efficient, do other things to survive, to grow, to thrive. And your role as the chamber, you need to support more local businesses like myself and others. You need to mentor those who will come after you. And you need to grow the community. We haven't seen any of that here. It would be nice to. We have about $100 million or more in infrastructure, buildings, deferred maintenance, other things. We have underutilized assets on the books. We need to start to monetize, to raise revenue, and gain something for ourselves from those things. A nexus to a larger conversation here that I would vociferously advocate this group begin to do. Look seriously at the 10% deficit that we have in local services kickback in tax money from the state. I've not heard a single person in this town, and to be fair, and many of the others who surround us, talk about how they were going to engage the state to bring back more of Auburn's tax money to Auburn. Nobody wants to be the squeaky wheel. Nobody wants to get friends, to gather people, to get the other 120 communities. Now, if you don't think that Auburn has the individual economic or influential power, 120 communities do together to go to Beacon Hill, to sit at STK at 15 Beacon, have a nice meal, and explain the facts of life. Local tax money needs to come back to provide for towns. As you know from the Mass Municipal Association presentation and white paper that was put out, many of you commented on it. I myself have opined publicly. I'll give you the Cliff Notes here. Change starts here. Advocacy starts here. We can empower ourselves simultaneously while protecting ourselves. And I, for one, would like to see the board, the administration, the assessors, the planners, get together with your friends, communicate with your colleagues in other towns, go to Beacon Hill and explain we don't need $5 billion general Commonwealth, I forget the name of it, I think it's corporation is their 501c6 or C3 that they have to assist small businesses, hint Chamber of Commerce, with over $2 million in businesses targeted to areas like Auburn. Haven't seen any of those grants publicized coming back here. National Grid, $800,000 to local, disadvantaged, equitable, small businesses. Where are those grants? Been there? I'd love to hear. Come on up. Let's tell us all about it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, would anyone else like to speak? Anyone in the audience? No? Okay, so questions here from the board.
I don't have any questions. I have comments if anyone else
Sure.
wants to ask questions first, or
Whatever you would like to do.
anyone have questions?
I have questions. So I just want to apologize. I probably sound funny tonight. I had very badly timed dental cavities work done at 4:30 today. So please forgive me if half my face is still not moving yet. So I just have a couple questions for our assessor. Town meeting, just for a second time, passed the veterans tax credits. We passed them in May. We had to come back and pass them again in November. For everyone's reminder, this provides the veterans tax benefit to those properties that are held in trust for the sole benefit of a veteran. I'm wondering if that tax credit kicks in for this fiscal year, meaning those veterans will qualify, or does it have, because we voted in November, even though we passed it in May, it has to wait until next year?
Those will kick in FY '27.
So they have to wait until next year. The other question that I've asked for the past 2 years that I've been doing this, we have a veteran work program and a senior work program. Veteran work program allows others to volunteer on the part of the veteran to benefit them to do that volunteer work, for which the dollar amount is reduced from the tax bill. I've asked and haven't quite gotten an answer yet. Is it possible for someone to volunteer on the part of the senior to do that work? And if not, why not? Seeing as though seniors, in most cases, would need that support more than necessarily a veteran. And if not, then what's needed for us to make changes for that benefit?
To our knowledge, we couldn't find any legislation or any programs that allowed somebody to work on behalf of the senior. They can work on behalf of the veteran, as you explained, but we didn't have any knowledge or couldn't find any information on working on behalf of the senior. So my best guess would have to be legislation. We can certainly keep looking into it, but at this point, we're not aware of any programs that allow for somebody to work on behalf of a senior.
Did you, by any chance, check with the Division of Local Services just to make sure before we go down the route of doing an enabling legislation, which I will do in May if needed?
Yeah, we checked, I can't recall off the top of my head, but we checked with various, maybe DLS, Attorney of the Day, a few other assessors. Nobody had any knowledge of it, so that's kind of where we're at.
Thank you. Couple other questions, more for probably the town manager. What is the status of filling Brooks' former position in economic development?
Through the chair, at this time, with our new assistant town manager, economic development director, we're assessing the needs that the town has in regards to economic development, planning, zoning, that whole area. So at this point, that position is on hold. We have the assistant actually doing some of those duties right now to ensure continuity of operations, but we didn't want to just fill a position when we weren't sure it was exactly what we needed. So we're just taking a little bit of extra time for that.
Since I said I'm just asking questions, I will come back to that when I make a statement. Later on in this meeting, we have approval of fees and fines. A lot of those impact businesses, along with just going to a single tax rate. Did our economic development director, was he able, I know he has only been on staff a certain amount of time, was he able to go through, look at those fees and fines, and assess opportunities to essentially reduce them or cut the red tape to support businesses coming in beyond just going to a single tax rate?
We have not yet done that analysis. He's been here a little over a month. We did work with the current department heads in the building department and DDIS, planning, and looked at costs and fees associated with those permits and whatnot, but we have not done an extensive review, per se, of fees and fines for businesses.
Last thing, just to my board members, fellow board members, after we close the public hearing, before we take the votes on the various factors and discounts, I'd like possibly to jump to 11A, just to get that update on the senior and small business property tax abatement, because that's going to weigh in on how I may or may not vote. But that's all the questions I have for now.
Okay, who's next?
So, yeah, I have comments. I mean, so I've heard a couple times that it reduces the commercial tax rate, but the only reason businesses exist are for consumers, and we're the consumers, and they get their revenue from us. So, you know, businesses aren't actually paying the taxes. We are as consumers. And yeah, while that tax base might increase beyond Auburn, it does have an impact. And economically speaking, if we're all on the same page, then we won't pay higher fees. Our cost of goods potentially go down. Again, I'm not trying to reset the whole supply chain. We can only impact what we can. I think Mr. Consiglio's presented options, knowing that taxes on property are not the way we should be doing it, because it's a failed system, so I'm not telling you that it's ideal. We already have shifted the burden. I've heard a few people say that commercial properties don't pay much. They actually pay quite a bit. They're about 4% of our land is zoned for commercial, and they're paying 23 or 24% of the taxes, so it's significant, and we end up paying for that, whether we're a consumer of that or not. So at the end of the day, all of us are paying it, and I've always advocated to get to a single rate. I know the board isn't going to happen overnight. I was disappointed last year, but understand there's a lot of things beyond our control. Costs continue to rise. We don't know what is going on in the whole economy, but I think everyone that's advocating for that is for a single rate is trying to say it takes time for these things to happen. We have asked the town manager to develop or better develop that department so we can get that growth. New growth is going to absolutely reduce the overall taxes for everybody. Personal property tax is flat. That means that businesses aren't necessarily investing in themselves right now, and that's, again, a factor of the economy. I think potentially a huge factor in that. We also have, when there is economic certainty, there are people sitting on the sidelines waiting for that economic feasibility to shift in their favor. And I think, again, moving to a single rate and not all at once will show them that we are on their side. And once it's a single rate, we're going to see that growth take off. We're going to come out of here and be prosperous. It's not about stealing businesses from Worcester or having other people move, although that's a great opportunity. The biggest roadblock is getting new businesses. And I know one of the residents says he has a business in town. I don't know if that person has a commercial location, if they're paying commercial taxes, or if they're doing it. We've seen an influx of home bakers who are working out of residence. The other thing is 40B. We have a lot of that. People talk about that. That is effective in the residential rate, not the commercial rate. So that's going to certainly swing that. So we continue to talk about discounts, they're going to be a big part of that, and they're the biggest recipient of that benefit. I don't want to say a burden, but obviously it's a change in our demographics in our community, and if they're coming in at a lower rate, when that rate eventually gets lifted, that could impact them and their ability to thrive as well, so. Those are my, the other thing, we're in the top 25% of the state for commercial rate. That's not a positive thing to be on. I mean, we're not in the top 25 for many categories, and the fact that we're charging commercial in that high of a rate comparatively is definitely going to put people off. You look at our surrounding towns, whether we're trying to get businesses to shift there, we're not competitive in many areas. We are competitive because of our location, but when you're talking economics, they're looking at the bottom line and how are they going to make that work. So, thank you.
Oh, yeah, definitely, but if Sarah has something, go ahead, Sarah.
I think I see both sides of this. I see the business's point. Shifting to a lower rate for them helps. I see also the residents' point, and I certainly wouldn't want to affect someone's ability to stay in Auburn if they should.
If I may, through the chair, the town of Auburn has not repossessed property because they haven't been able to pay. And mass law has actually changed, so we can't even profit on that. So if anyone were to have trouble or not be able to pay, the most the town could ever benefit is whatever's owed in arrears. So I don't see anyone being put out by that. I mean, it certainly is challenging, and I'm not trying to discount that. I think it's challenging for everybody, but I just wanted to, no one's losing their home over the tax rate.
Okay, thank you.
Difficult vote every year. It hasn't gotten any easier the longer I sit here, and some of the members talked about that at the beginning of the meeting. I'm on record, I'm not in favor of a single tax rate, and nothing that's been said here tonight alters that. Having said that, I have voted multiple times to move the tax rate, so I haven't been a tin ear or an unwilling participant in this process and just saying, no. I think we've gotten to a point where we are very competitive. When I look at these other communities, and I do go into them, and certainly in no way criticizing them, but they have nowhere near the commercial base that Auburn has, and they never have. And that's because they've made decisions at their level, at the Board of Selectmen level, that they didn't want businesses in certain places. They didn't want, two communities that abut us have gone after chain businesses for decades. So, we can adopt any sort of model. I guess it's because I grew up here and I've heard for years us be compared to other communities, and I always resent it because Auburn isn't like any other community. Auburn isn't Shrewsbury, it's not Grafton, it's not Westboro, and it never has been, and we shouldn't want to be those communities because Auburn is a great community and has been a great community. When other communities weren't putting in sewer in the 1950s, Auburn was doing that. When other communities weren't developing commercially, Auburn was. So I think the history of Auburn has always been, we have been a business-friendly community. We have welcomed them. And when we saw in the early 2000s, and even before that, in the 90s, members of this board, our predecessors, worked very hard to get the small business commercial tax credit. And they were successful after many, many years. So again, these other communities don't adopt the small commercial tax credit. They don't do anything to help their businesses. And every single year that I've watched this meeting, and I've been involved for a very long time, this board, and the faces have changed, have always adopted it. So we have recognized that there are differences in businesses. Now, I agree with Mr. Chambers, and I agree with the proposal tonight and Mr. Consilvio. if we want to be a progressive state, the idea of using property tax, which is a regressive tax, it is far from a progressive tax, because it doesn't look at, the ability for the person to pay. And Mr. Chambers said, well, nobody's losing their homes. Well, but our children can't afford to live in town. We have an affordability crisis in the state, and it doesn't seem like anybody's paying a hell of a lot of attention to it. Because I keep hearing that the cost of childcare, for the last 30 years, I've heard the cost of childcare is out of control, and yet the full-time politicians haven't figured out how to solve that problem. We've also heard that the cost of training at the college level has been out of control for 30 years. And again, for 30 years, the professional politicians, one was mentioned tonight, our former mayor of the city of Worcester, they haven't solved any of these problems. They're happy to tell us that the problems exist, but they don't do anything to help it. So I guess I'm not in favor of moving the factor tonight, because for the simple fact that if we keep the factor at the rate, the business community will be paying the exact same tax bill that they are for fiscal '24, and the residents, as it has been, will see an over $200 increase in their taxes. So we have been, even in those years when we haven't moved, there has not been a year that I've ever heard any assessor, and Seth is the second assessor since I've been a member of the board, who has said that the commercial and industrial have had to pay more. Their rate has stayed the same or gone down in the last 11 years. So I don't think it's a choice between moving the factor or, creating more opportunity for business. I think we have great opportunities for business in the town of Auburn. And as for supply chain, with what's going on at the federal level, good luck to anybody who has to deal with that. I don't care if we went to a zero tax rate for everybody. We'd be paying a ridiculous amount of money for goods and services because the federal administration doesn't seem to care that what he is doing, seeming with the approval of, yet again, professional politicians, that, the average citizen doesn't matter. And it's, for me, I think we should hold the rate at 109 for this year for the very reason that, again, the commercial and industrial are not going to pay more. The residents will continue to get the $200-odd increase, and next year we'll be talking about, starting another 20-year or 30-year payment cycle for the fire department. So, the years ahead are not going to be easy, but I'm just not in favor of moving the factor with everything, with the uncertainty in the economy, and again, with the factor that commercial industrial are not going to see an increase if we hold the rate. They're going to see the same tax bill as they did in the previous fiscal year, whereas the residents are again going to see an increase.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yep.
Give me enough time and I'm going to come up with more questions, so I apologize. I had asked this question previously as well, and I know that this might be for either our assessor or even the chamber, perhaps. Do we know, so I think we all, well, I would hope we can all agree at this point that trickle-down economics doesn't work. If we, money does not trickle down, it trickles up. And the small business discount, as well as discounting or moving closer to a single rate, those benefits go to the property owner, not necessarily the business that's at the property. Except in one possible case. Do we know how many businesses that we have that are triple net leases? And with the triple net lease, the business pays the rent, the taxes, and the insurance. So if their tax bill is going down, then those businesses directly benefit. Otherwise, we're hoping the landlords are nice people. And that's not a bet I'm willing to make.
So every year, we send out a 38D, which is an income and expense form to all the commercial properties in town. Whether they choose to send it back or not is up to them. If they don't, they get a $250 fine. So it's been traditionally a very low return rate because most of those commercial businesses decide that they would rather not disclose their income and expenses.
Does the chamber by any chance have a ballpark figure at all? If you don't, that's fine. I don't want you to come up and guess at it. If you don't, that's fair. The second question I had was, with respect to actually two more questions. One is the senior benefits. I know that I had asked this question, and maybe people don't know this, but I do because I asked the question. Seniors who automatically qualify for the tax abatement, or who go through the process and qualify for the tax abatement, correct me if I'm wrong, they automatically are benefit from a discount in our solid waste fee that they pay through an email from the assessors. So thank you for streamlining that process so they don't have to submit another application. Is it true that they could also benefit from a sewer rate discount, but are required to fill out another form, even if it's just signing it, but they're required to fill out another form? And if that is true, is it possible to streamline that as well, that if they benefit from one, similar to the refuge fee, they don't have to then fill out another form for the sewer rate?
Through the chair, this was discussed last week in depth, and it'll be brought to the sewer commissioners for a vote to discuss on the best way to ensure the savings for these residents without having to come in and fill out a whole new form.
Thank you. The last question I had is there are municipalities, and a lot of my questions obviously are geared towards making it, because I'm very concerned with the ability of seniors and other, populations within our town, whether income-based or veteran status, and their ability to stay in town, in the town that they help build, to afford to stay in the town, and anything we can do to make it easier for them and more cost-effective for them to remain in town, the better. To that note, there are some towns that, through their assessing department, have a program where seniors or veterans of a certain age can defer their property taxes until the sale of their property. So essentially, as their income reduces over time, as they age, and affordability becomes more of a problem, they can defer those taxes. There are certain legal, parameters taken to guarantee the town has that upon the sale. But all those taxes come due when they sell the property or when their estate sells the property. Does Auburn have that? And if not, has Auburn looked into that?
So that was discussed with the previous two administrations, and I think ultimately it was deemed probably not the wisest program for the town because it would lose a lot of its cash flow. I'm not exactly sure, but it was talked about with Ed and Julie, and I think at the time they just didn't want to partake in it, so it just kind of has sat dormant for a while now. But again, I think it came back to, they kind of looked at it, and reducing the cash flow of the town didn't seem like the best economic idea at the time.
Thank you. That's all the questions that I have at this point. When we're going to go vote is when I will get up on my soapbox and voice my reasons.
Yeah, sure.
And this is more future-proofing the process, which is, a couple of years ago, the board voted to adopt a policy that we would go to a single tax rate. Prior to that time, there was no policy. However, the three individuals, the majority of the board, actually the only three who voted for it, never faced the voters. But the other big hole in the donut with that policy is we have no criteria. when is it a good year? We've talked about, well, what is a good year in the past? Obviously, we've all changed, we've all served with different people over time, but I would like the board to consider to work with the Finance Committee and others, perhaps town meeting, to try and find if we're going to continue down this path, which again, I'm not, saying one or the other. My position is clear. I think we should have a clear criteria as a board as to when. We shouldn't be guessing at it. We shouldn't be just, well, every other year, every third year. There should be an objective criteria that's applied to this process so that the board can be, governed. And there's probably 1,000 factors that we'd all have to consider in order to do that. But that's just something that I'm going to ask in the next few meetings if we would consider looking at that and what that would look like for people. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, statements? Okay, do I hear a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No.
Madam Chair, can we move up agenda item 11A?
Sure. Do I, is
I
that
make
a
a
motion?
motion? Yes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to move up agenda item 11A. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? No. Agenda item 11A is an update in the status of the special legislation approved by town meeting for senior and small business property tax abatements. And this was approved, I believe, at our May town meeting.
So, hi, through
Hi.
the chair. So I sent in the certified votes to Moore and, now,
Representative Frost.
thank you. I did send in the votes to them. I mailed them in as I was instructed, and I have not heard anything back. I was told that my office would not usually hear anything back. So this is the first time that it's being brought up to my attention. Before I did come up here tonight, I did email them. Of course, I won't hear anything tonight, so hopefully I will hear something from them tomorrow.
To the town manager. Have you had any conversations or communications or responses from them with the special enabling legislation once it was submitted by the town clerk?
I have not.
Thank you, Ginger.
Thank you.
All right, do I hear a motion?
Make a motion that we vote to shift the residential factor from 1.09 to 1.07.
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, discussion?
If anyone else wants to go, if not, I will. Okay, so, through the chair. So, like Ms. Ruffley, I understand both sides of this, and I am puzzling over this because just some simple economic facts on the residential side. Inflation in Massachusetts is 3.3% right now. National average is 3.0%. So inflation is hitting Massachusetts harder than it is nationwide, which is affecting our residents and their ability to afford, regular household goods, medical supplies, food, et cetera. At the same time, the unemployment rate in central Massachusetts is 5%. Massachusetts is 4.8%, national is 4.3%. So in central Massachusetts, including Auburn, we have a higher unemployment rate than the rest of the state and the rest of the nation. Again, which is impacting the ability of our residents to afford basic services. We're also, while we may be not be at a single rate like the other surrounding communities other than Worcester, we are the only community in central Massachusetts that offers the small business tax benefit. No other community in Massachusetts, in central Massachusetts, offers that. Auburn's the only one. So we are taking steps to be pro-business or to help our businesses. I have concerns that we have not done everything we can for the residents to warrant shifting the factor in terms of the new veterans benefits are not going to take place because of issues with paperwork and with the state. So those aren't going to take effect until next year. Our senior and small business is entered into the black abyss that is the state legislature. So our attempts at passing and benefiting, giving extra benefits to seniors and to make it more affordable to be here, as well as small businesses as well, we did both in tier, is not moving forward either. We only have next year to get those passed before they die automatically, like every other bill at the state legislature, and then has to be refiled again. So I'm a little concerned we haven't heard from our representative and our state senator, both of who, when we were going through this in May, committed to filing those on our behalf and supporting them as they move through. We have, on the business side, I think there's more. I understand the desire to go to a single tax rate. I do. I understand that that's the main focus of the chamber with respect to making Auburn more business-friendly. But there's a lot of other things, again, that I've said over the past 2 years that we should be doing as a local government that we're not doing yet. And I hope we're getting there with the new Economic Development Department. And while I respect that we're keeping Brooks' position empty, I think we're asking our new Economic Development Director to do too much in the sense that he has to play the big game. He has to look at the long-term picture. He has to look at property and developers and bringing in that new growth so that all of our taxes go down. That's the best way for all of our property taxes is to go down, is to increase the new growth. But at the same time, we should be having you want to call it a commercial areas coordinator or a business liaison that Brooke used to fill. And she was part-time. When she became full-time, she wasn't in the position long enough, but I had hoped that, and I said this when I supported that vote before the select board and town meeting, was that the goal of a full-time position that is not at the level of Paul is to do things like identify state grants or private grants, to work with the chamber and other small businesses to identify those grants, help them go through the process, apply for those grants, and bring that money back to Auburn. If you're wondering why, as Mr. Richards said, that money's not in Auburn, it's because other municipalities have staff on board that do that work. They support the local businesses, they support the small business, they help them identify the grants, apply for them, and bring the money in. That's stuff that we can be doing as a local government that directly benefits our small businesses, our chamber members. Promotional campaigns to support our small businesses, that's something else that position can do. And as I alluded to earlier with the fees, is that, quite frankly, I hear a lot that Auburn is not business friendly. And I don't hear that relative to our tax rate. I hear that relative to the ability of a business to come in, go through our permitting process, get approved, and then open up the business. And all the hoops they have to jump through, the permits they must go through, the fees they have to pay, the inspections they have to go through. And I understand that we want to make sure that when a business comes in, it meets all of our expectations when it comes to health code, building code, plumbing code. I understand all of that. But there's a certain amount of red tape that's inherently built into a bureaucracy, and I'm a bureaucrat. I understand it. I work in local government. But there are a certain amount of red tape that can be cut. And while Paul is figuring out the big picture, I would like, someone in Brooks' position, Brooks' former position, to look at that red tape, who could be working with DDIS to identify those, bringing them together with the chamber and identifying those issues and cutting them out so that the next time the fees come to us and the fines come to us, That's been addressed. So I think our local government should be doing a lot more for our residents and for our businesses that we're not doing yet. That is more important in my mind than the tax rate. And whether we move down a 0.01 or 0.02 or up a 0.01 or 0.02 or whether we stay flat. Those are real changes that can make a bigger difference that I think that we're so focused on this tax rate, we're missing the opportunity to actually make real change. So I'm getting off my soapbox. I am truly on the fence here. And I think where my vote's going to come is just how far you want to drop that, because, you know, it's going to impact our residents at the worst possible time. And yes, it's not going to affect any of us. The five of us sitting up here can probably afford the extra $42 or $40 a year. I can skip 2 iced coffees, and that pays for my quarter increase. Not that I'll do that. But for a senior, for somebody living on a fixed income like my parents, who are also town residents and living on fixed incomes and facing increasing costs at a time when the national government, and they don't like to bring the national government into this, but at a time where there's questions on how much money they're sending to the state and whether their benefits are going to be fully paid for or cut, is really concerning. I wish I didn't have to take this vote right now. At this time, with the federal government still technically shut down. But it is what it is.
I'm sorry, can I ask, would you be more amenable to like a 1.08? I see your point on the reducing red tape and perhaps saving and making Auburn more attractive that way, but I also think I would like to give our new economic development director a little something that maybe would make businesses more attracted to Auburn, even if it is just a very small 0.01% reduction at the cost of around $20 a year for residents. I get that's not the real cost, because as Mr. Carpenter indicated, it's about $200 a year anyways because of home values, but I could see doing it to a 1.08. Well, it's not, I was asking if the board would be more amenable to a 1.08 instead of the full 2 points shift, but
So anyways.
down one.
Yeah, interesting idea. Before I forget my manners entirely, because apparently I've become a woodsman, I did want to thank the chamber for coming out. I really appreciated your comments, Nigel, and the meeting before the meeting. I really appreciate that. I hope you'll continue that going forward, no matter who happens to be in these chairs, because I think it's a positive move for the town. And I want to thank the residents for coming out and speaking, because oftentimes the residents don't come out and speak. You know, I can certainly support a 1.08. I do want to say that I appreciate, you know, what Mr. Chambers said, what Mr. Corain said. You know, in my experience, for many years, we've never had discussions where there's actually real ideas as to how to improve conditions, so I'm very appreciative that I'm, you know, benefiting from the brain mass that sits on either side of me, so I thank you both for that.
I can, you know, to answer Ms. Ruffley's question, I can definitely support a 1.08. I can't support a 1.07.
I will withdraw my motion, and I will make a new motion that we shift the factor from 1.09 to 1.08.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Okay, so this is to change the split from 1.09 to 1.08. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so that motion passes. Now we have,
Make a motion not to adopt the open space, right? We don't do the open space discount.
That's correct.
How do How do we do that in the affirmative?
I think you make a motion to adopt, you second it, and then you vote it down.
Make a motion to adopt the open space discount.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to adopt the open space discount. All in favor? All opposed?
Aye. So I'm going to make a motion to adopt the residential exemption like I do every year. I know it's probably not going to pass. But again, this is an opportunity for us to shift the burden to those that are making money off of properties. I know it's not a lot, but it's essentially what this does is if you are, you have a single-family residential house or property or residential property that you are renting out via, whether you're renting it out or whether you have it on Verbo or whatever those other apps are, this shifts a higher weight to those residential properties versus those that are owner-occupied. So I'll make a motion that we adopt.
Second for discussion, through the chair. Can I ask, so I know it's relatively small, or if we adopt this, is anyone going to see any savings? Are we talking fractional cents, or are we talking dollars here?
We would have to go through, probably in conjunction with the town clerk, every parcel to see who was an owner occupant and who was not. My estimation would be that 96, 97, 98% of properties are probably owner occupants, so this would be such a minute percentage that I don't think it would make much difference.
So that includes any rental property that's long-term, or is it only short-term?
It's any property that's non-owner occupied.
So then it would shift to the renters, who would
Yes.
then pay increased rent and then make it more affordable. So I seconded, so let's,
I would say I'm not in favor of it, only because of what Mr. Chambers said. I don't want our renters having to pay more. The rents are out of sight. I don't want to see them, because they have either by choice or they just can't get into a home. I don't want to see us adopt it, because I don't want them to have to pay more.
So we have a motion and a second to adopt the residential exemption. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. So the motion, it is not adopted.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion that we adopt the small commercial tax exemption at the maximum amount, which is 10%. Is that correct, Seth?
That's correct. 10% is the max, and that's traditionally what has been adopted.
Thank you.
Is there a second? Second. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Discussion? All right, we have a motion and a second to set the small commercial exemption at the maximum amount of 10%. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No.
I'd just like to thank the board, and also on Wednesday, I'm going to be working in conjunction with the town CFO to start the recap. So maybe you could all drop by Wednesday. We'll let you know and sign off on all these votes, and then we can get rolling with all that. Thank you again.
thank you.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we take a 5-minute recess.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, take a 5-minute recess. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Okay, we have a recess. We have The break for the Select Board meeting is over. Returning to our agenda, we're looking at item 5B. We're going to have a presentation, a department snapshot by the Conservation Commission. And Tom Fallon, our Land Use Coordinator, is going to present. Hi, Tom.
Good evening. Bear with me a moment here. I'm just going to open up the slides. Select Board members and Town Manager. As you mentioned, my name is Tom Fallon. I'm the Land Use Coordinator for the Town of Auburn. This Wednesday, I'll be celebrating 1 year on the job. And I'm going to give a presentation tonight on the Conservation Commission. It's the role of the Conservation Commission to enforce the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, the Rivers Protection Act, and the Auburn's Wetland Bylaw. The Conservation Commission aspires to minimize the impact of activities on wetland values, including aesthetics, agriculture, erosion and sedimentation control, fisheries, flood control, groundwater, public or private water supply, recreation, stormwater prevention, water pollution prevention, and wildlife habitat. Fun facts about wetlands. 1 acre of wetland can store 1 to 1.5 million gallons of flood water. Wetlands act as nature's kidneys, performing water filtration by removing nutrients and sediments from water. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers found that protecting wetlands along the Charles River in Boston saved $17 million in potential flood damage. What wetlands do is they slow water flow and allow nutrients from fertilizer application, like farming, manure, leaking septic tanks, and municipal sewerage to be absorbed by plant roots and microorganisms in the soils under the wetlands. This filtration process removes much of the water's nutrient and pollutant load by the time it leaves a wetland. Artificial wetlands are sometimes constructed to treat stormwater and wastewater because they are so good at this filtration process. For example, in Casella on Hardscrabble Road, they're going to be coming to conservation. They're proposing to do a gravel wetland in an existing detention pond so that the metals that run off the roof, the zinc and the other things now, the EPA has new more stringent regulations. So these man-made gravel wetlands are actually going to do a better job than the natural wetland of absorbing these metals and keeping them out of our water supply, filtering them out and such. That's going to be done by Walsh Engineering. They're one of the, they're a really great engineering firm out of Maine. They do a lot of wastewater treatment plants, you know, and waste facilities, that kind of stuff. And I'm looking forward to their presentation of conservation on Wednesday night. This map is, you have a small version of it, but in the packet that was handed out, you have a larger version. It's easier to read. It shows all the ponds in Auburn. It shows the total maximum daily load is the TMDL. What that is it's a calculation of the highest amount of pollutant that a water body can take in and still meet standards for healthy systems. The Federal Clean Water Act requires states to identify water bodies that do not meet these standards and develop TMDLs for them. Point sources for this are primarily wastewater treatment plants that discharge to surface waters of groundwater. Non-point services include septic systems, stormwater discharges via runoff over the land surface, and fertilizer runoff from lawns and golf courses. The next 2 pages are the bodies of water in Auburn, and if you take a look, the worst Category 5s are Kettlebrook and Darkbrook as they run along Route 12 from Auburn Pond behind the library all the way down towards the Worcester line. Because they're right along the roadway there, they get a lot of the runoff from the road, motor oil, diesel exhaust fluid and stuff like that. On a good note, Stoneville Reservoir, which is Rotary Beach, when I was a very young child I learned to swim, is at a level 2, so the water pollution there isn't nearly as bad. Is it still not ready to swim yet, but we're hoping with technology in the future that, you know, at some point they'd be able to bring back a limited amount of more recreational use like swimming and boating and such. Let's see. Okay, because we have utility lines running through the town of Auburn and all the cities and towns in Mass, as well as railroads, we have across our country, around the world, utility, electric and gas and railway lines traverse the landscape, providing uninterrupted benefits for all. As much as we take these for granted, maintaining rights-of-way along electrical grids, gas pipelines, and railways is imperative for public safety. You have fire hazards from when you have vegetation growth in close proximity to electrical transmission lines, gas pipelines, trains breaking, or wheels grinding. Our environment must be protected as well, using best management practices to protect our valuable natural resources are able to be completed quickly and safely with little to no impact to the areas. This is accomplished by following federal EPA standards and the Mass DEP standards as well. They have protocols. The Mass Department of Agriculture approves, oversees, and enforces the required vegetation management plans and yearly operational plans under 33.3 CMR 11, which are right-of-way management regulations for the Pesticide Board in Massachusetts. A couple of the rules, for example, are any herbicides cannot be sprayed within 10 feet of wetlands and within certain areas based on drinking water protection regulations. Contractors, when they're spraying along railways, must use low-pressure booms, and they treat spraying areas with an abundance of caution. Some areas are treated every year, others every other year, and areas in close proximity are not allowed to be sprayed. They have to be removed by cutting or removing by hand. There's no chemical treatment near public or private water supplies or areas of endangered or rare species, plants, and animals are located. The Mass DEP and Mass Department of Agriculture maintain databases of all vegetation maintenance plans and yearly operational plans, and they are available to the public. They include schedules that show, like, depending on rainy and windy days, when they're going to be spraying, treating, and material safety data sheets, which provide detailed information about the properties, hazards, and safe handling of these chemicals. Federal and state-approved herbicides and algicides for pond treatments to control algae and invasive aquatic plant species that are detrimental to the resource area being protected are scrutinized and heavily regulated and controlled by these agencies. And just some final thoughts. Being a steward for the town of Auburn as a land use coordinator in the Department of Inspectional Services, I'll be, like I said earlier, I'll be here, it'll be a year this Wednesday that I've been here, and I'm excited to see our town, in which I've lived here for 18 years. Before me, 3 generations of my family have been here. My great-grandfather owned a filling station across the street from Town Fair Tire, and I'm still asking Mr. Ronnie Brooks to find out some information for me on that. I love living in this town. It's been a blessing to work here with some great people in my department. I've been using 25 years of construction experience I've had and 18 years on conservation commissions working with conservation, ZBA, planning, building, Board of Health, and solid waste and recycling to help allow sustainable growth that improves our quality of life here in Auburn, ensuring a wonderful place to live, learn, work, and play for our families, children, and elderly alike, for all of us and for Auburn's future. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to serve and to give you this presentation, and God bless you all, and I'll take any questions you have.
Thank you, Tom. Any questions?
I do, thank you. Appreciate it. So I know you mentioned that a lot of these plants filter certain metals and stuff. Are there certain plants that filter the metals better than other things? Is there something we can do in our bylaws that might encourage planting of certain vegetation to allow these to be filtered? I know we have a lot of wells in town. I'm not saying go out and plant all the stuff, but can we do stuff in our own yards?
I know that, like, environmental engineers like Ecotech and other companies, Mr. Glenn Kravosky from EBT, you know, they're very familiar with native plants, and there's certain species that are better at filtering than others. One of the things that I learned, and I'm frustrated with in all the years I've been in conservation, is I don't know if you're aware, but it used to be the number was like 60% of all replications failed in that when they plant those native plants and they're supposed to maintain them and monitor them for the first couple of years. It's very important, because what can happen is invasives like knotweed and you know, Japanese knotweed and other plants can come in and just take it over. You see that a lot, like in Mass DOT projects, like over here at the Mass Pike. You know, they did their best to eradicate it. It's very tough to get rid of Japanese knotweed. You have to dig down the nodules like 22 feet in the ground. It's almost impossible to completely eradicate them, and it comes back quickly. But there are There are different sources. Like I said, I'm really looking forward to this presentation from Mike Walsh of Walsh Engineering, because these new gravel wetlands are supposedly like going to be the future as far as working with natural systems to really be able to filter these, contaminants and make our environment better.
Excellent presentation, thank you. So when you're talking about these gravel, is this a new kind of replication that, so when a development alters wetland, that these gravel, or is this
Okay,
in
so-
addition to, or is the town going to, or considering enhancing certain areas?
Let me describe it to you this, Dan. I was with my wife on our anniversary in early October. We went up to right over the border of New York State, and we stopped on the way out going through the Mohawk Trail to look at the leaves in Deerfield, and there was a Cumberland Farms, and there's a very big industrial park, and they had one of these gravel wetlands, and it just looked like a huge fenced-in area with a lot of gravel stone, and you didn't see many plants around it. It was grass planted on the outside, but what's underneath that thing was basically an infiltration system of like 4 to 5 different compartments. And what Michael Walsh described to me when he came into the town was that these things are so efficient at filtering everything through. Now, they're maintained, they do like the yearly maintenance plans. As you may well or well not know, Casella does give us reports every 6 months to conservation regarding, when they do the testing and they maintain and they clean the filters out and all the contaminants for what's over at Casella now. And when this new system goes in, they're going to do the same thing. They're going to maintain them. But I guess what the future of this holds is that it's going to be able to do in that basically almost twice the capacity of what like a natural wetland would do with these gravel wetlands that they're proposing will be able to do, and probably even improve more as the technology gets better.
So you're talking about replication. What is the cost of these? And of course, going back to my brief time as a commissioner, obviously it's great that there's alternatives that we can seek, but obviously they're not replacing the habitat that they're, so it's great that they're able to increase flood capacity and other things, but we also have to worry about habitat that we're removing, and that's part of the main reason I always understood replication was really required when they did that. So do we have any idea what kind of expense that this new type of replication would cost for the business owner, and are we bonding these things as part of that process?
That's a great question. I'm going to get a lot of information from Mike Walsh this Wednesday when he comes in for the 15 Hardscrabble Road project, because that's definitely, I know that one of the things is the design standards when they put these in is obviously the one that I saw in Deerfield was located next to a large Cumberland Farms with a service station, probably like a dozen pumps, one of these newer style big ones, and it was right in an industrial park area. So I mean, obviously, they're gonna use the best design standards that they can, I'd imagine, when they put these in, and going through like planning and stuff to make sure that these things, complement the environment. Obviously, you don't want a large area of fenced-in gravel in the middle of an area that's all natural. It would really stand out and it would look terrible.
Yeah, I just worry about, as you're describing at a Cumberland Farms or an industrial park, the level of investment in the size of that project may be able to handle something like this, but as we heard tonight and all of our planning documents tell us, is the residents want more mom and pop. So I just want to, 15 Hardscrabble, obviously, that's Casella, is it? I mean, they don't really worry about money, do they now? They're usually pretty flush with cash. So, yeah, very interesting, and I'll tune in on Wednesday to see what goes on. But thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it, and look forward to hearing more.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I want to apologize in advance. I've been so focused on the tax issue. I normally try to get staff questions in advance, not to play gotcha or throw anything at you. So if there's something you can't answer tonight and you want to get back, send an answer through the town manager, that's fine. I just have a couple questions in terms of, so from my time on the planning board, I know that as projects get proposed and go through the planning process, Those things that are in conservation areas go through the Conservation Commission. There are times, and from my time on the planning board, one of the frustrations that I had, and I know other planning board, past and present members have, is often, before anything gets to that point, property owners will go to DPW for a land disturbance permit and clear-cut properties. And then, for whatever reason, sometimes they don't go through the planning process for years later, and you have what used to be a natural habitat, native trees, native plantings are suddenly either in terms of Oxford Street near the police station, or it looks like they ran a quarry out of that particular property right near Rethel Street. Or like on both Southbridge Street as well as Hampton, you have extremely large parcels that are now all Japanese knotweed. So my question is, when somebody goes to DPW, my understanding is through the process is DPW. Does DPW consult conservation at all if they look and there's any of those locations are near conservation areas? Do they consult with your staff in advance?
Great question. Yes, I do speak to Joanne and Emma. Emma more often, probably because she is a stormwater engineer for the town, especially given, some of these projects that have been coming through, like 47 and 49 Rockland Road, which, as you all know, I can give you a quick update. It's going through conservation now. Graves Engineering was hired as the peer review by the town. They're going to be answering comments from Walsh Engineering that were just sent out last week, so they're not going to be present at the meeting coming up this Wednesday. They're going to be at the December 10th meeting, and hopefully with the back and forth process with the peer review and the engineer there, they'll have that worked out. I was able to go out there on a site visit with Mike Walsh and Timo, I forgot his last name. We spent about an hour at 47 and 49, got permission from the manager there, walked the site, took a lot of pictures, discussed it, looked at plans. So, they're pretty, I think it's going to be pretty thoroughly vetted, and I'm looking forward to see, with this project move forward and make sure it's done right. That, to me, is the most important concern, because, it's not just wetlands in Auburn. That area is critical. It's in a floodplain. That water, directly and indirectly will go down over towards Perry Place and over towards Worcester, towards the diversion tunnel and that kind of stuff. So it will have a significant impact. And in the event we did have like a 100-year storm, that would be the biggest area of concern as well, with floodplains, protecting that and making the impact as little as possible, and that's the whole reason why this road that's going in has been scrutinized so much. And hopefully with the design that they come up with, that it's going to be something that's going to allow the least amount of impact in the event we do have a 100-year storm, because we will have one at some point.
So I appreciate all that, and I'm grateful for the update. So I guess I'll phrase the question a different way. So I know they consult with you when plans are put forward, but when somebody's just applying for a land disturbance permit, meaning they haven't gone before planning board, they haven't given anything to Dr. Menard yet, they're just applying for a land disturbance, and their intention is to clear cut it and prep it, but they haven't actually gone through the planning process yet. Is DPW bringing you in at that point, or are they waiting until it goes through the permit process?
In the year that I've been here, I haven't seen a project like that where they've gotten a permit coming through. Usually, because in DDIS, I work closely with Mr. Gary Allard, and when building permits come through, when they do come in through conservation, I look at the GIS, the updated mapping software, because it's much better than what we have for the town. It shows the actual, wetlands like Chapin Brook and stuff like that. So I scrutinize that, in the same thing. Part of my job responsibility is to try to facilitate and as they go through this planning process, to direct them in the right direction, like the DCG meetings. I think they're very critical. because I think it saves a lot of time and money for the town and for the applicants, to streamline it. But, I would expect and trust that, that if they were going for a land disturbance permit and there were issues with conservation, concerns, that I would be notified. I haven't been notified this year of any projects of that scope unless they've gone through conservation first. I can think of like Jerome Ave. They came into conservation. A company in Worcester is looking to relocate GM Corporation, and it's like right behind where Timbuktu is. And what they're going to be doing is locating from Worcester. They're, medium-sized contractor. They've been around Worcester for 20 years. I'm familiar with them. And I think it would be, great for them to come to Auburn. I think it would be a good benefit to the town in that project that they're doing. Right now, it's basically just going to be storage of some stone, bark mulch, that kind of stuff, nothing major. There is a water pump house right there, so there's areas in there that have underground piping that they cannot put any kind of heavy equipment or anything. They're very well aware of that. They don't want to damage their own property or damage any town stuff. So, they're going to be very careful what they do there, and if they do decide to develop, they're going to go through the proper channels.
Thank you. Yeah, the parcels I know of happened before you were on staff, and I just want to make sure with you being on staff that all the departments are talking and working together. The other question I have is, near a lot of our wetlands, our roads have what's called country drainage, which means that it's just flowing. It's not getting captured, it's flowing down a hill into a potential wetland. So is DPW, again, consulting with you when they are looking to redo these roads, to consult with conservation and discuss alternatives to a country drainage system, or as part of that country drainage system to put in some kind of protection where it's catching, PFAS or oils or minerals before the runoff water gets into the wetland?
I'm not aware of any projects right now. I know with some of the roads that they just paved and developed. I can tell you when I first started on conservation, I was in the town of Spencer, and they have basically 90% of that town is like storm culverts along the edges of the roads and stuff, and it did create a lot of issues when their town's DPW did some work that impacted homeowners where there was flooding involved and things of that nature, and I would expect it, in my experience dealing with Joanne and her capable staff, that any of these kind of issues would be dealt with, that do things properly, engineer it properly, for the minimal amount of impact to like wetlands and the natural resources around them.
Thank you. The last question I have is, after a project gets approved with certain conservation restrictions, what kind of follow-up is happening either 6 months after it's constructed, 1 year? Do you guys go out and inspect and make sure they're complying, or at some point does it become just a complaint-based?
I would say that would probably depend on the scope of the project. Since I've been in this position for a year now, I do have an Excel tracker sheet that follows the projects, and most of them seem to be single families, but like the bigger projects, a couple of weeks ago, that Monday when we had that rain, we had like an hour of rain between 8 and 9 o'clock. I was able to go out in a town vehicle at 9:30 and visited all these projects. I went over to the proposed fire station over there, 319 Washington Street. Those are the projects that I'm really keeping an eye on, the bigger projects that have the biggest impacts. The smaller projects like the houses and stuff like that. And it seems to me like sometimes I've seen where some of the people, like when they come in, with a building permit and they have conservation stuff, we try to streamline that. Generally, I would recommend them to do an RDA, unless it's something that's like got a big impact. Like, for example, 5 Friedel Street, I encouraged him to file a notice of intent, but he wanted to do an RDA anyways, and because it was in such close proximity to the brook there, the conservation felt, you need to, they gave a positive determination, you have to come back, do a notice of intent, and It's good that, the board is very familiar with a lot of these engineers like Glenn Kravosky and people from Ecotech. They're really good, talented professionals that know what they're doing. They do a good job. Glenn was actually able to identify near 5 Friedel an old area that had not a junkyard, but it had some debris and stuff in it that he's going to propose and he's going to clean out. So it's going to make that whole area that much cleaner, which is great.
Thank you, and congratulations on 1 year.
Thank you. Any more questions from the board?
Yes, Dan?
I do have one more, because as I was just thinking and listening to Mr. Crane, another big ask in planning documents is a swimming program. Most of our, as you've highlighted, most of our water bodies have some level of impairment. Would one or another of those water bodies be more of a lift to make them suitable for a swim program or over another, I guess? So I'm thinking Camp Gleason, obviously, we've just redone the building. It's got parking. The other location doesn't really have parking, and you have to cross the street, so.
Yeah, I can be completely honest with you. My experience in construction, probably part of the reason why you have the water conditions at Camp Gleason is because when you have an area where there's a lot of mobile homes or single-family homes that have like septic systems and that, a lot of them have the old gray wells, and even though they're not supposed to use a dishwasher or washing machine, they use them anyways, and what happens is the phosphates get in there, and as you know, the phosphates get in there, the algae blooms feed on it, and that's why Eddy Pond is what it is every summer. It's crazy, and you see that everywhere. Anywhere you have development where there's a lot of houses or mobile homes or anything like that, it just, they're not there yet. Maybe in 20 years they'll have better products than Tide that don't create phosphates and don't promote algae growth, but
What can we do to counteract these things? Because over the last 20 years, I've noticed, especially out in the Princeton area, a lot of very clear lakes have now become, as you say, impaired to the extent that they're, just not usable. And they used to be usable, so, I'm just looking for some sort of idea if Gleason would be a good place for us to investigate to do a swim program, because again, I think we've been talking about it for the better part of 20 years, probably since the racquetball club closed their, or paved over their pool for the, volleyball court, so.
I don't have an answer, but I will find out who I could speak to with the state probably, because I would love to know. It would be fantastic to have some kind of a swimming program in one of the bodies of water in Auburn, or even swimming, boating, canoeing, that kind of thing, I know we have canoeing. My neighbor's son's, his Boy Scout troop just built a new canoe rack behind the fire department for the high school for their canoes. So, anything like that, I would absolutely, I will look into seeing who I can talk to in the state and find out and get an answer. But like I said, I was very happy to see that Stoneville Reservoir was only a Category 2, which means the water is not ideal, but it's the best body of water in the town. So.
I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks a lot, Tom. Appreciate you stopping by and waiting so long.
Thank you very much for your time, and have a great evening.
You too.
You too, thank you.
All right, so back to our agenda, we're looking at items 8B, gift acceptances in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A.
Madam Chair, can we move up item 8C, because we have a member of staff here to discuss that?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to move up item 8C. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so this is, we have a schedule of fees and schedule of fines. So do we have any questions? We've got these to review.
I have some questions.
Just identify yourself, sir, yep.
Gary Allard, Building Commissioner.
Thank you. All right, so what question, yes?
If I may, through
Sure.
the chair, the initial fee schedule and fine schedule, CI and double I, there are no changes. Okay, so the board will need a vote for the board, but there aren't any changes. The ones that Mr. Allard will be talking about are the 3, 4, and 5.
So do we want to go to 3, 4, and 5? Is that what your intention is, Mr. Carpenter?
Yes, I didn't know if anybody had questions. Just because they haven't changed doesn't mean we don't want to zero them out.
I have questions on those, but
Just-
since, Mr. Allard is here, I think we take his stuff first.
Okay.
You can certainly join us at the table. You don't have to be
Yeah.
marooned in the middle of the floor. It's better to be eye level anyways. Well, if Mr. Allard could just kind of go over his rationale for, I saw quite a few of the fees have been adjusted, and of course, there's the explanation a partial explanation in the agenda itself that, you know, these haven't been looked at for a number of years, but what is the rationale, you know?
Well, we just looked at the fees. The basic fees hadn't changed at all. We didn't raise our standard fees for the permits, for most all the categories. But we had some that we were, missing, and that needed to be adjusted. Temporary certificate of occupancies, we were never charging for those, and those take a lot of time for me to produce, and things such as that. And every other town does, and as you see, some of them are much higher than what we're looking to raise them at. Zoning determinations was a $50 flat fee. That, clearly takes me an hour and a half to do a simple one. So we went up to $85. And reinspection fees, the same thing. We don't do a lot of those, and it's really repeat offenders that we get with those. And so the $85 is more in keeping with other communities as well. On the commercial end of it, it was sort of the same sort of thing. Our basic rates stayed the same for all the categories. They're right in line with some of the other communities that we compete with, and we thought that was just right. And we just raised, a few things that take us more time to do and put them more in line with what the other towns were charging. The biggest one that I saw when I came here from Springfield was the antenna replacement for the cell towers. And, we were just getting very little for that, and coming from Springfield, and in most places they get, $500 antenna to change, not per. And so the average around here is in a vicinity of $300 to $500. And so we just decided to go with the 400 and just, keep it. There's not that many of them, and they believe me, what they charge to do that and things like that is one of the things. And there's a lot of time spent with the engineering on it and stuff like that. So that's just in keeping with what the other communities are doing.
Excuse me.
The others, I haven't got much to say about the plumbing and the electrical. They kind of did their own, and they're not really here, but they're kind of their own freelancers. And I looked at it, what they did for their adjustments, and it was very staying in line with the other communities that we deal with. They had not adjusted theirs in quite a few years.
Thank you.
Are we higher in any areas than other communities, or are we strictly in line with?
Well, it depends on the community. Like we're competing, hand in hand with like Sturbridge, Millbury, and communities like that. You can say like Oxford, Spencer, and things were a little higher than them, but they don't have the base that we have.
And I know fees are intended to cover the cost. You said it takes a lot of time and effort on a lot of these. This still isn't going to cover our costs, correct? Or it just closes that gap?
Oh, we hold our own with these.
Okay.
In our department, we have a very efficient department. Everybody works very well together, and same thing. We're getting so much better with that conservation, DPW, the communication with that. We're actually working on, consolidating some of the redundancies that we have with the aquifer that we just noticed, and a go through. And I talked with Emma today, and we're setting up a meeting to, get some of these things out. They don't seem like much, but when somebody has to come in for a special permit for something, they can be upwards of $1,000 for that, and then the impact on it when they maybe don't have to do anything. So we're working on trying to keep things, where they should be.
Have we enacted the triple fees for people that aren't pulling permits?
Oh, very, very diligently.
No, and again, I've seen a lot more people coming forward.
Oh, yes,
and
that's-
being asked, so I just want to make sure that, people are continuing to do the right thing, and if not, there
And
is...
we're very diligent on it, and we're very much the same with everybody, and, we don't show any, there's no favoritism or anything such as that, with the exception of maybe the, military, fire department, and police. We work with all of them very well, and try to help out more than worry about the addition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Not a question, more of a statement. And again, this is not a reflection on the great work that your department's doing. I'm going to go back to what I said during tax classification, is that the biggest comments that I hear in the business community is that Auburn's permitting process and is the biggest detriment to coming to Auburn. And I know last year we had, or at least I had, expressed the desire that we bring economic development staff on board, that they, that they review the process, the fees, the fines, the approval steps, and we sort of look to streamline and cut the red tape. And I understand due to timing, with the time it took to bring a permanent town manager in, then to obviously advertise and bring an assistant in, that hasn't happened. And since we haven't, quote-unquote, raised fees in some time, I'm wondering if there's a need to do it this year, or if we can wait for 1 more year, seeing as though we've already waited several years, to allow that process to play out, so that we can make sure that we're not back here next year saying that, no, a 75 should go back down to 50. If we can just take that time and not put it at 75 and wait for it to be at 50.
For which,
If I may, through the chair, Paul is, he's been here for 6 weeks. There's a lot of work that's being done by staff with Paul and separate from Paul, and the fees and fines were already vetted quite extensively through DDIS. And based on the fact that we anticipate a very difficult financial year next year, I would highly recommend that these be adopted and amended in the future if necessary. I do think that your concerns about the permitting process, I understand that, and you will definitely be seeing some changes with how we process permits when it comes to businesses and people coming into town to do work in the town. But in regards to our fees, 10 years to go without an increase in fees is pretty big. I was not aware of that, obviously, until that was brought to my attention. So they felt it was integral to update these fees for this year. They have to be revisited, or they're actually voted every year. So I think my recommendation would be to adopt the recommendation by the building commissioner and revisit next year if possible.
Okay, any other questions?
I would just say that if members want to take time to have a further discussion with town administration, we don't have to vote on this tonight. We could carry it over to another meeting, if that's something that another member or members would like to do.
So I guess if the board's willing to, I'd like to take time, at least for 1 more meeting, to look these over and really, think about it. And it's not just businesses, it's also residential. And a lot of the complaints, again, I don't think are aimed at our current staff who've been here for a year or a year and a half or 2 years. I think it really is a legacy issue with previous staff. But I just want to, before I'm comfortable voting for this, I just need to sit with it and make sure that, I'm comfortable increasing this, and there's residential increases as well as commercial and business increases that, again, are coming at a time that is not, and I understand we've gone 10 years, but I don't think, at least as of right now, I don't think in 1 more year it is going to kill anybody, seeing as we've waited 10 years before we start putting more on our residents and more on our residents and more on our, you know, commercial establishments without going through, again, that due diligence. But
Again, it might not be perfect, but seldom is anything really perfect. So I don't know if you need more time to achieve something, but I'm more than willing to wait. But I don't think we wait another year just because it's not 100% perfect. I think we recognized, and when I say we, the staff recognized the need. It's been a long time. I'm okay with a grace period if we want to wait, but I don't want to wait a year to do this. I think the information that has been provided and knowing that we're on par with similar towns, we might be higher in some areas, but not critically higher. I don't think it's going to stunt growth. And maybe some notice letting people know that the fees are going to change, so if someone's on the fence about filing, they can.
Almost nobody will notice any difference in fees with the standard permits for commercial or residential. With ours, the only ones that were raised were the obscure ones, some of them that had really no fees that really should have, and the antennas was really the only thing that we did there. And if I could just, you know, comment a little bit on the big concern that with the complaints with business and residential, a lot of that is to some of the processes that they have to go through. And we find that I'm trying to work with that to expedite some of this. The land disturbance permit is sometimes taken, 2 and 3 months. It gets missed sometimes, and they don't pick up that is required until late in the game. And as we all know, with business and especially, construction, spec building, time is your enemy. And, you're banking on getting started and finish at a certain time with bank rates and potential and trying to work and bring that in a much faster pattern, working with them on that, and conservation as well, because those are some of the longer processes. And to get those in the forefront and get them in right away on those, I think we all agree on our end that that's going to be a very big help on speeding this up.
Anyone who served on a land use board knows that it can take some time to get through the land use process. So if you're somebody who, in addition to the administrative processes, sometimes just getting on for a hearing, and then if you have to go to multiples, it's
the amount of engineering.
It's a lot, and that's a fee for every single notification, and the T&G just keeps going up and up and up. So no, my point is, if we can wait and give members, if they have further questions, I think it's, best to have that done, and then if we want to entertain, and I think it is a good idea if we're going to do something where there's fee increases, don't put them into effect until sometime in the new year so that we can publicize that these are going up. And, that way the buyer will be well informed, and you won't, hopefully get a lot of angry phone calls into the office saying, what happened? I looked at it 3 weeks ago, it was this. And so I think that's a good suggestion too. So if nobody else, I would just make a motion that we hold this to the next meeting of the board.
Second.
So just to verify, you're,
Just what for the zoning enforcement officer for
3, 4, and 5.
Yeah, 3, 4, and 5, holding those
okay.
until the next meeting.
So we have a motion and a second to hold items 8C3, 8C4, and 8C5 to hold till next week, or our next meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. So let's look at items 8C1. Okay, the annual board vote on this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. The
You
annual
do a great
board-
job.
Annual board vote on the schedule of fees.
So I had brought this up previously when we weren't discussing fees, and I was reminded that we discuss fees every year, Todd, and that's when you should bring it up. So I'm going to bring it up. Dog licenses. So what bothers me about the dog license fee is that Normally, I am all in favor of user fees instead of going to a tax to pay for something, reasonable user fees. But the dog license is a fee where, and it's the only one where the person paying the fee actually doesn't get anything. They get zero benefit from registering their dog with the town. I understand why we want them to register their dog with the town for public health reasons, but to actually make them pay a fee on top of that just has always bothered me that, you know, you can go to any other one of these fees that we have and somebody is directly benefiting and that's why they're paying for a fee. When it comes to dog licenses, they don't. I'm fine with the fines. If they don't register their dogs, they pay a fine, they pay a late fee, you know, but to make them pay a fee for something that only benefits the town just really bothers me. So I would like to see this fee, which is, and I understand it's not a lot, it's $15 per spayed dog or $20 per intact dog, be free. For that very reason, I don't think it's reasonable for us to charge a fee for something where they're not getting an actual benefit from.
Yes.
Thank you for bringing this up, because it has been a topic of conversation for the last few years, and since I've been here at least, and I think it even goes back before then. I understand the point of view that the person who is paying for the dog license isn't getting a service. We do have our animal control officer who functions out of the town of Auburn, and we have a shelter for animals that is sort of an offset. If there's a missing animal, you'll often used to see Amy running through the streets, now it's Tanya. Especially there's some frequent flyer, I won't even name the kind of dogs that sometimes we chase. But there are some benefits that we have with our animal control officer and with the service that we provide our residents. I would be a little concerned in a year when we are tight financially to reduce a fee that probably generates upwards of $50,000 a year. And I can get you more, if you want to hold the item, I can get you more accurate numbers so that we're better prepared to discuss. But those are my two things. I think there is a service that we provide. It's not as easy to be seen as maybe some of the other services that we provide.
I guess the counter that I would say to that is that we have an entire section called animal care where impoundment for animal pickup fee is $40, impoundment for animal boarding fee, I think it's a per night fee of $20, plus the $40 for the pickup fee. So again, those people that are using that service of the animal, you know, officer going out and picking up the dog or cat, and then impounding it, housing it, there's fees associated with that. That again, that's a service that, you know, if my dog gets out and you find my dog, and I'm paying for that service now. But again, the dog owner that is just paying for a license fee that they never use doesn't get a service from the animal control officer unless that dog gets out, and then they're paying for that service. They're paying $40 every time their dog gets out and gets picked up by the animal control officer or Auburn PD or somebody. So I guess, you know, I understand that argument. I just don't think it carries much weight, but that's just me. If the rest of the board is comfortable moving forward, I just want to, you know, again, raise the issue that we are charging a fee for a service we're not providing.
So to your point, so we have to license dogs, it's MGL, we have to run a program, which costs money to run any sort of program. But to your point of the animal control officer is charging an impoundment fee. We had a dog pass away last year who got out a lot to the point the neighbors knew who she was, and I was incredibly apologetic. But anytime we called them, we didn't get charged that $40 impoundment fee. She was more concerned about making sure the animal made it home. So I think that impoundment fee is only when they are actually don't have anybody calling them to assist. And maybe perhaps we should have been charged the impoundment fee. I don't know, but I think it was, I saw that as a service that was provided by animal control for any time we needed assistance locating our dog. And we weren't charged because they didn't always pick her up. Sometimes she came home on her own. But I don't have a problem with the licensing fee, one, because we're required to run that program, and $15 per dog to run a program doesn't seem egregious to me. But that's just my thought on it.
I mean, I would just say that we're required to run a lot of things under Mass General Law that we don't charge a fee for. You know, we're not getting charged per police officer. We're not getting charged per
Yes.
firefighter. We're not getting
But
charged per teacher. Those all come out of the regular tax levy.
But the MGL specifically says that you can charge a fee to run this program.
Because we can, doesn't mean we should.
I don't disagree. But in that the manager has offered to provide additional information, and I'm a big fan of, if Mr. Crane has this question, how many other people have questions? So if the town administration is willing to do a presentation at the next meeting to justify the fee and why it is not only important from an economic health standpoint, but how it's, directly impacting the service provided or the function provided, I'd be happy to, hold these, because there's no change, so there's nothing that we have to worry about. But I'm always a fan of hearing more about these things. And again, there are people at home. If one of us has a question, there's a chance that many, many other people are like, why the hell am I paying that fee? And I'm sick of paying fees, and maybe we can change 20% of their minds. I don't know, but I'd be willing to, hold this
Absolutely.
to the next meeting and give town administration an opportunity to present to the board and the community at large.
Are there other animal fees that can be discussed as well? Because I believe that some people have to register other animals.
I don't see any here, but I can look into that as well.
Yeah, I might be mistaken, but I thought like cows and horses and other
Oh,
types of animals need to be.
I do see a couple on the fine schedule. It looks like cat, ferret, rabies vaccine violation. So I think there's some communication with area veterinarians that work with the towns to ensure that the animals are properly vaccinated. So there are other fees as well here on the fine schedule.
Just one other question about fees, outside of the animal care fee. The excavating in public streets, do we know if DPW, which is common in other municipalities, charges extra if it's a new street? So if we've just paved the road and National Grid's going to come in or Eversource is going to come in and cut into that road, is there an extra fee they're paying for, even because normally you can do a moratorium, but if they declare it as emergency, and they always declare it as an emergency, if they cut into that brand-new road, are we charging them extra?
If I can, through the chair, I do believe we are. I will double-check for you, or I'll have Joanna answer that next time when we talk about the fees. But I do know there's been lengthy conversation about redoing a road and having it be dug up by a contractor or a developer, and what that means. And the conversation has been that they either have to repave it shoulder to shoulder, or that there's an additional fine. So we can get that, more information for that for you as well.
All right, so it looks like we're going to also be not voting tonight on item 8C, item 1, the schedule fees, and item 2, the schedule of fines. Do we have a motion?
I'd make a motion. I would just also say, we only have authority over certain fees and fines, so there may be other fees for farm animals that aren't subject to
Right,
the Board of
she's
Selectmen.
going to check
Health
it out.
Department, but,
Yep.
yeah.
I'd make a motion that we hold
second.
this to the next regular meeting.
I'll second.
We have a motion and second to hold items 8C, 1 and 2, until the next meeting. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. So the next thing we're going to look at is,
Madam Chair, can I bother you again? Mr. Richards is here, and he's 8F. Could I make a
Yeah.
motion that we move up item 8F,
Yeah.
just because it's getting late? and-
Second.
we also have someone online for item 8D.
For the flammable license?
Let's take care of that one. That's going to be a quick one. All right, so do I hear a motion that we go next to item 8D?
So moved.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This is a vote to amend the flammable storage license by Asbury Auburn T. LLC, doing business as Herb Chambers Toyota, Auburn, located at 809 Washington Street, Auburn. And Joy's going to give us a little explanation.
Oh, correct, I am. So this has, Herb Chambers had come before us, I think at the last meeting, and there was a discrepancy in the amount of gallons that they offered on their application. So the application requires the amount of gallons above ground and below ground. So when they applied, they only gave us a portion of, they gave us the above ground. When we gave it to Ginger to put in the system, she realized that the underground storage wasn't considered. So there's 4,000 gallons of underground storage that was mistakenly omitted and was missing from the previous application. So because of that, I wanted to bring it back to you. I anticipated it would be approved again, but we wanted to make sure that your vote was based on the proper information.
Why is someone online to talk about a flammable
Do we have
storage?
any questions?
They're probably doing their due diligence, just in case.
Yes, he's,
So do we vote on a total? Yes. Is there a number in here that we're going to vote? Or we just
Yes.
vote on
Yes.
4,000?
here, right here.
That was the
Okay, gotcha. Yep. So we have, do I hear a motion that we amend the flammable storage license by Asbury Auburn T. LLC, doing business as Herb Chambers Toyota Auburn, located at 809 Washington Street, Auburn, Mass. 01501, to add 4,000 gallons of underground flammable liquid storage?
So moved.
Second for discussion.
So we have a motion and a second. Discussion?
I'm just going to say that we have requirements of when people are supposed to come before us. This is not one of them. And in 11 years, because of an administrative error, we're going to have somebody sit on a line for 3 hours. They don't need to be here for this. There's no need for them to be here for this. So I'm going to support it, but nobody needs to be here for this. And it's a waste of their time, because we know why. This was an administrative error. In 11 years, there's never been anybody who's come before us for flammable storage.
All right,
We have rules, let's follow the rules.
gotcha. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. All right, so they're all set. So now, do I hear a motion?
Motion to move up 8F.
a second.
So we have a motion and a second to move up item 8F. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. All right, so this is going to be the, Mr. Richards, come on up, please. This is going to be the discussion on your recommendation for Camp Gleason. Sure. You provided us some information, I believe.
Good evening. Auburn's best and brightest, the nearly empty gallery, those with beverages and popcorn at home, Madam Chair. Excelsior. I realize that by this point, every one of you, as of 9 a.m. this morning, reached decision overload, information overload, and it's been compounded with all this fun tax discussion. So I'll give you the bluff, the bullet points of the rough draft and sort of framework that you see in front of you. I think that this is a topic, my opinion, that requires a lot of discussion, intelligent execution, and nuance. There are things in here that can be executed immediately. We can start doing some of the things suggested here. In the short term, some of it, like the EDIC, will be long term. My prepared remarks. Let's not mince words. You've got a packet in front of you, thick, dense, full of bureaucratic language that lulls you into sleep. We're talking about EDICs, Mass General Law 501c6s, C3s, and that's all important. The real question tonight is, what kind of Auburn are we really building? The problem, as I mentioned earlier, state has cut local reimbursements for local services and tax kickbacks by 10% since 2002. It's a lot of money. We need to recoup that. Our tax base isn't really growing fast enough. We have an influx of 40B projects, which is great. It means we have an influx in our tax base, we have an influx of residents, we have some growth. But what we don't need, or want, really, despite what the chamber may or may not do, is for those bodies to take their money to Worcester, to Millbury, to Oxford, or any other place. We want to keep as much of it here as humanly possible. We have a number of underutilized time and empty town assets and lands that could be monetized, we could bring revenue from. The solution, the Auburn Foundry, it's going to do three things. It activates dead or underutilized assets. We can turn a vacant kitchen at Eddy Pond into an hourly rental opportunity that brings revenue into either the EDIC, the 501c3, or a direct enterprise lease with the town. I believe you're doing a little bit of that now with a yoga enterprise there. Two, it creates a new, novel, and growing tax base. You don't have to keep trenching the one you got. New people come along, they give you more. It's a great thing. Progress. It costs you nothing. A 501c3 trust raises grants and donations for equipment. The EDIC operates pay rent to the town, and again, this is a framework. There are 3 or 4 different sub-avenues you can go down. You can contract out the operations if you don't want to deal with it, if it's a headache for you, if it's too much, whatever. You can operate it yourself. You can set up an independent board with a mix of town and private folks. There are a lot of things that you could do there. The model. Businesses that use Foundry spaces can earn fee discounts. This is really important. This is not a handout. This is governance. So what I'm proposing here is that an entrepreneur, somebody from Auburn Youth and Family Services, the Housing Authority, a regular resident, another business owner wants to start a new business. Say they want to make sourdough bread. As several of the members have mentioned here tonight, there are folks that try to do that at home, and it's a big bar to clear. I'll just use the low-hanging fruit. We have an empty kitchen there that has jumped through all of your hoops already, that is sitting underutilized for a small fee. Now, you have to be careful with how you tax or burden a startup, so you'll need to intelligently apply a sliding scale. What I propose is they will pay a full retail rate that you set, that's fair, that's even, that you would charge anybody. But a subset of their profit or product would then be given at retail rate to, in the instance of bread, say Auburn Youth and Family Services, the senior center, the fire department, the schools, whatever. And it would be on a sliding scale. The more successful they get, up to a certain max amount that you set, they would get a discount at retail rate off what they're paying you. That's important because the entrepreneur, the business, is actually only paying COGS price. They're only paying for their time, their labor, and the actual expenses invested, so they're actually getting that revenue, that space that you provide them, a discount off their overhead that they can then reinvest, they can then hire. The Chamber of Commerce, they have an extensive membership database of businesses, though admittedly not complete as we've discussed, where they can come in and they can connect somebody who sells t-shirts with somebody who sells suits or jeans, or with the fire department can purchase their t-shirts for the department from that vendor. And then it becomes symbiotic. We're not picking winners and losers at the governance level. What we're doing is we're providing a small ecosystem of businesses who all need suppliers locally, who they can get in touch with, who they can depend on, and they can all work together and grow together. That increased revenue brings increased revenue here. It brings growth into the town. It increases your tax base. Further, the ask. I'm requesting that you direct professional staff, the town manager, and departments to identify their assets. You should already have a pretty good handle on that. It's not a big ask. Times of where they are empty or underutilized. And ideas for businesses, types or styles, however you'd like to term it, that could take that space. So for example, low-hanging fruit, Camp Gleason, it's empty here. Maybe there's a digital creator who does YouTube content, who could use a professional video studio, but because of equity issues, shall we say, they don't have the opportunity to have that at home. They could pay a nominal fee and utilize the professional video equipment that ACTV has set up there. In an interim, they could promote ACTV. They could give ACTV ad space and revenue from that. There's places you can go down that road. Because the EDIC and the 501c3 will be a long-tail process, a multi-year, there's a town meeting vote that needs to happen, warrants, all those things, and administrative hurdles. You could immediately start doing some of this as lease, enterprise, rental agreements to get that ball moving, and then convert those over into the EDIC if you so choose. The Chamber of Commerce, as I mentioned earlier, has some very special capabilities and powers under C6 in the Mass General Law. They have unique opportunities that other entities don't with the state, with federal governments, and other nonprofits to get grants, to give grants to the town, to do other things to support these businesses in their mentorship. Now, the 501c3 trust that would come as part of the EDIC has some overlap on the Venn diagram of what they're able to do, so they would need to partner closely so they don't replicate efforts with the Chamber of Commerce. But they could both work opposite ends of the problem set and do something outstanding. That means we have an offset to maintenance issues in current buildings. It means Eddie Pond, the low-hanging fruit again. If you're generating revenue as an event space, an ecotourism space, a kayak rental, digital creator studio, yoga Pilates online, utilizing ACTV and the space as well, you're generating revenue into a space that can then be used to repair the dam, which, by the way, sits at $160K at the high end to repair, with all the defects found in the recent phase 1, which, you know, if we have issues of depreciation because of the increased use or maintenance with that facility, they could be offset. This can go larger. You could utilize space at the school, in the kitchen. You can utilize gym and event space, again, at the school. There are other assets that we have to bring in income that doesn't exist today that I think will benefit. I'd like you guys to explore the opportunity to do the warrant, the articles, the administrative hoops to found the EDIC and the 501c3 that complement it. As I said, that will take some time, and this is a framework. It was not meant to be a completely finished product because there are moving parts here. That's it. I hope that you all have questions. I'm happy to get as deep or as shallow as you'd like.
Thank you. Questions?
Many, many. So really not a question for you, Mr. Richards, other than to say thank you for doing the work, the initial work for this. I really think we need town administration to form some form of working group. And if this needs to go before town meeting, I would encourage that the town manager get some town meeting members on the committee so that they have some buy-in and they can actually talk on town meeting floor if this gets to that point. But I know finance has been looking at a lot of different things. You know, obviously, we would want finance to look at this and make sure that before we did anything, or that would be my recommendation, that we send it to finance for their review and any comments they may have. But
So, if I may,
This is a lot of information. I've read it about 20 times, still digesting it all. I hope I've made it pretty clear that, I don't think there should be a rock left unturned when it comes to new ideas for new growth and to leverage what we have to the benefit of the residents. I agree that I think, this requires, there's a lot of unknowns here. Like you said, this is the beginning, this is the framework, but there's a lot of unknowns that I don't think any of us have all the answers to, including our staff without significant research. While I understand forming another committee, we have lots of committees in town. We have a committee right now, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that has a certain level of expertise when it comes to economic development. It's the Economic Development Committee. I know a couple members. I think that is probably one of the most underutilized committee we have for the level of expertise on that committee. I know they're appointed by the town manager, not by us. Is this something that we can ask the administration to send to them to dig into, to research, to work with town staff, to work with Mr. Richards, and develop whether this is possible? If it is possible, what's needed, what the benefits, what the drawbacks are, so that when we all go for that town meeting vote, if it gets that far, the select board, the finance committee, and town meeting has everything before them laid out. Because I think if you bring, 5 of us have it, we've read it. If you then give this to town meeting and there's 200+ members of town meeting that have to digest this as well without any of that background, it's going to be very hard. So I think that, we need to do our due diligence again, and, if, to the town manager, is this something that you think the Economic Development Committee could sort of spearhead and dig into, since it seems to be, at least in my opinion, up their alley?
Through the chair, yes, I do.
I don't care if it's them
Make a comment?
who appoints the committee, personally. I just want to make sure the town meeting members are included. And I know that some of these committees have town meeting members on them, but it would be nice to have somebody who isn't affiliated with a board or a committee who happens to be a town meeting member to weigh in on these things. Because ultimately, just like with the budget, it's their budget. We all spend a lot of time talking about it, presenting it, and everything else. But at the end of the day, town meeting is consulted not at all about a budget that actually is theirs, and they can literally take that budget and throw it in our face and do whatever they want because they have all that power. So however it's organized, I would just say I would like to see some ex officio members from town meeting, and maybe the finance committee at least ask them if they're willing to do that so that they can attend the meetings and weigh in, so that we're getting a 360 review, not just a zoning review, because, again, I think we need more than one body to make that.
So economic development, the members that are on there that I know of are not zoning based, they're business and finance based. That's why I think that, this is something they can dig into. I know there is some overlap between finance committee and the economic development committee. I don't know if there's also town meeting overlap. I agree. I think, looping in town meeting members is great. I just think that they're sort of an untapped resource, and we finally have something that we can give them and say, focus on, do this for the benefit of the town, and I just think we'd be crazy not to do it.
As former chair of the committee, I agree with you, but I'm just making sure that we have the infrastructure in place. It's just like any committee. I don't want the planning board to be all engineers. I want them to be a mix. I don't want everybody on the finance committee to be a CPA. I want someone who maybe doesn't understand finance, because they're going to ask a lot of excellent questions that everybody else just takes like, oh, well, whatever. It's just like me sometimes. I'm like, well, we've always done it this way. Why are you even bothering to ask a question, which is stupid for me to say.
Okay, so,
But I would ask that the manager consider creating some ex officio members so that for this process, from other boards, especially town meeting members, because again, they're the body that decides all these things, and they should be brought into the process far more than they are.
All right, thank you, Dan. Did you want to say something, sir?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did. To Member Corain and the rest of the board, I did put quite a bit of labor into the research here, and this is not a novel structure. So towns like Mashpee, Athol, and many other communities utilize this structure, specifically the EDIC and the 501c3 component, to actually get funds and benefit back into the community through grants and other vehicles. So it would probably save you a lot of research time and a lot of headache. Though I will say, in my personal research and opinion, they have severely underutilized the capabilities of these processes, but they are not novel. They're not new. They exist other places.
I noticed that online, so Falmouth had several. They have several facilities that they're using, that they're aiding with an EDIC.
Another great benefit to this is that some towns use EDIC in conjunction with their zoning and their planning. So my hope is that this doesn't become a document that collects dust on a shelf or dies in a committee somewhere. It's that it works, that you utilize the multiple facets of it. So for example, for the zoning aspect, you can situate next to, okay, we know tech like SHOT or other companies are looking for space near their workers, near their potential employees. So if we could cite that next to a 40B resident, well, they need all sorts of employees to participate in that business to make it operate. And we would I would think we would much rather that those folks take 10 steps to their job instead of 2 hours down the pike to Boston. And this is another way we can accomplish that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I do think Economic Development Committee is the right place to start. Just that the proposal is good. It just needs to be streamlined into some steps, some specific steps. Yeah.
I purposely left it fluid because there are a lot of avenues that you all could take. With this, you can narrow it specifically for Auburn, as you have information in the current day that I don't have access to. So I wanted to give you that freedom to adopt it to what will work for us.
Yeah, and we need to develop a place to start, because there's a lot of avenues here, but there should only be 1 or 2 places to start, and that's what they need to do. So we're going to refer to the Economic Development Committee. Okay?
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
So I know Mr. Carpenter wanted to make sure that we had town meeting members on it. I'm just wondering if all town meeting members could be notified when that gets on the agenda, and ask them to participate and see who can come and who has an interest, because again, if we throw it out to all of them, maybe we get a few, and those people will be a little bit more passionate and really be more of a subset of that rather than just trying to select.
Okay, good idea. Tell them at the meeting, okay, great. All right. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good night. All right, so we still have a few things to look at here. We need to go back to item 8. Well, let's do 8C6 first. We have a list of zoning board appeals fees.
There's no vote there. It says just acknowledging it.
Okay, good.
Communication.
So we're acknowledging it. So now we'll go look at the 2 gifts. The first is, there is a $100 check given to by the Fur Friends of Auburn to the Animal Control Department in memory of, for Kathleen Sabina Animal Compound, in loving memory of Ron Prouty.
Motion to accept with gratitude.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the gift. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. The next gift is also from the Fur Friends of Auburn. It's a gift to the police department, $1,500 for the K-9 unit.
Make a motion that we accept with gratitude and that a letter be prepared for the chair's signature to include mention of the $100 gift to the animal control.
Second.
A motion and a second to accept the gift. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, back to our agenda. So now we're looking at item 8E, a discussion, potential vote on regularly scheduled board meetings on November 24th and a December meeting schedule. So our next scheduled meeting is November 24th. That is a Monday before Thanksgiving. Any questions about that date?
I'm going to be alone. You guys are going to show
Oh, I'll
up?
be
I'm
here.
going to be here.
Awesome. Excellent.
All righty, the
Monday before
24th.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I'll be here.
Okay.
That works.
Awesome.
All right, so that's when we'll have our November meeting. Then we can look at our December dates. We would be meeting on the 8th, the 22nd, and possibly the 29th of December.
I'm available the 8th, but I am not available in person the 22nd or the 29th.
I have no life, so I'm available all of them.
I also am available for all of them, too.
So the 29th might not be needed, correct?
Yeah, we could leave that, we could just put that as a possible date and wait and see if anything comes up that we would need to address.
And will we have a quorum on the 22nd?
Well, I would make a motion that we meet on the 8th and the 29th. The 22nd is the week of Christmas. Staff shouldn't have to be coming here the week of Christmas unless it's, the sky is falling, which hasn't happened. So I would make a motion that
Second
we
that.
schedule them on the 8th and the 29th if we have business. If we don't need the 29th, we don't need to meet, but that's my motion.
Second.
Motion is second to meet on December 8th and December 29th, as long as we have business to discuss on December 29th. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And we have minutes from October 27th, 2025. Do I hear any questions about those minutes?
They were excellent. Thank you, Daniel.
Okay, so do we, I'm not going to have a motion, but we can accept those October 27th, 2025 meeting minutes as read. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are adjourned.